So we have Mr. Brandon Joe Williams, aka One Stupid Fuck, aka King Pickle of Pickletaria, and the king of the Amnesty Coalition, my man, Brandon. How's your day going, bro?
Good, man. How you doing?
I am good. I was just telling you before we started recording. All day I've been feeling the only type of what like event or situation where I felt like this in my past is like I'm gonna go see a girl tonight. But tonight it was I'm gonna talk to Brandon about this awesome laws that are not fucking beating me over the head and fucking me in the ass. It's actually once you understand and comprehend the law, you can leverage it to your benefit. And that's what Brandon's here to talk to us today about. So
Hell yeah,
thank you
man.
for taking your time to do that.
Hell yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So one, I do want to have a little bit of an unorthodox start. I want to hear more of your personal story as to how you even came into uh, this passion and this knowledge, this wisdom.
Yeah, I was being attacked by the Employment Development Department, which is like the payroll mafia police out here in California. And they basically trespassed onto a property. I had a landscaping company that I took over with some friends of mine. It was my buddy's dad's, and he was basically just gonna like let it burn and throw it in the nearest dumpster and move on with his life. And my closest friend at that time had been doing sales and design for a landscaping company for like 6 years. And then my friend, who was the son of the father who was getting rid of the landscaping company, he's been working for the LADWP as a foreman for like massive, really complicated construction projects in electrical and roads and really like super, like basically as high end as you can get. Essentially, before you become like maybe an engineer or something like that, is basically how extensive his knowledge and his skills are. And I thought to myself, okay, well, I've got this buddy over here who's been doing sales and design for 6 years. I've got this guy over here who can run crews and build literally anything. It's like a freaking kindergarten compared to what he does on a day-to-day basis at his job. And then me, I've built and sold businesses and structured businesses and installed, marketing campaigns and phone systems and training systems and a lot of like the administrative and logistics behind the scenes. And I said, this is kind of a no-brainer. We had at that time, I didn't know anything about any of this legal stuff. So we had a license already. The license was from like 1974. We had a huge client base. They had been doing landscaping since like 1974. So they had tools, they had a team, they had a truck, they had everything. And so it was free. Now it came with a lot of issues. Though the guy's wife had just gone into hospice, and she was running everything kind of behind the scenes. He didn't even know how to process a credit card payment by the time we showed up. So the whole business was in complete disarray. The entire office looked like somebody had thrown a hand grenade into it. We didn't even know. I didn't even know where the phone number was. I couldn't even figure out if we had a website, because his wife knew everything, and she had declined so rapidly that she didn't even really know anything. You couldn't ask her anything anymore, so she didn't know the passwords to anything or anything. So it was just a complete nightmare. But even above and beyond that nightmare, I wanted to take on the landscaping company because the team, the way that they built it up, the way they'd been in business as long as they had, it was all for free. But also you're going to get all this bullshit along with it too, right? But I saw the silver lining was way better than all the bullshit. I was like, yeah, the bullshit's not that bad compared to what we're going to get. That's awesome. So we're going along. I had just fixed up and done all this stuff with this landscaping company and totally restructured it and put in new credit card processing systems, and I built a new website, and I put in a new digital phone system through Ring Central, and just all this stuff, and bank account stuff. We had to go and do bank account stuff. We had to do all this stuff. By the time that was all kind of settled and done, and we had the operation was kind of just moving steadily forward, the Employment Development Department decided they wanted to kind of rear their ugly head. And they trespassed on one of my properties, on one of my job sites, and started interrogating one of my employees and or performers. I didn't, this is before I really understood all the terminology and the legal stuff. And so they sent me this bill for like $60,000, and they sent me all this. Well, at first they sent me all this stuff, and you have to fill out all these forms, you have to do all this stuff. And I ignored all of it, didn't know what to do, was very scared. And then they started sending me this bill, like, oh, you didn't respond to any of this stuff, so now you owe us $60,000 or whatever it was. And I was just like totally freaking out. Basically, I had no idea what to do. I was having like a heart attack. I was terrified. So there's this lady named Nancy Kramer who ran the assembly, the Los Angeles Assembly, which is like the people who are trying to bring back the original America, the Republic, the original California. And she'd been trying to tell me about this stuff for about 2 years. She was a client of mine in a different venture that I was working in. And she was always very kind and always trying to share with me some of this stuff about taxes and all this kind of stuff. And I was just always kind of scared me. I didn't really want to hear much about it. And then finally, when the EDD came, it got bad enough to where it was $65,000 and they were starting to threaten to sue us and everything else. I went to some attorneys and accountants and they said, oh, you should just make a payment plan. And I said, make a payment plan for what? This is just straight up extortion. Why in the hell would I make a payment plan? It doesn't make any sense. So that was just ridiculous. So I ended up getting rid of all the accountants and lawyers because they're fucking retarded. And then I went to Nancy and I basically said, what is all this crazy ass shit you've been trying to tell me for 2 years? Now I've actually got a real issue that I need help with. I'm ready to hear it now. I wasn't ready to hear it before. I thought you were crazy. So she tells me about this shit. My business partner, Tracy, he was super into it. He was super excited. He signed up right away. I was absolutely terrified. I pretty much only moved forward because Tracy did. We were there at her house, at Nancy's house, and Tracy's like calling all of his friends. And hey, dude, come over here. There's this paperwork. You got to do this paperwork and like become a real American, blah, blah. And people were like leaving their job sites and like coming to this lady's house, like while I was there and like walking in. They had no idea about anything. And it was just like, sign here. And they're like, fuck yeah. Like signing these docs. I mean, it was a whole trip. It was a whole experience. Right. And so after I left there, I had been kind of like exposed to this whole new world of different things and opportunities and whatever. So my first reaction to it was to go on to Amazon and buy every single book on the subject, because there wasn't a lot of material that you could really find. This was in September of 2021. You really couldn't find a whole lot of decent information about this information, right? So I read maybe 25 or so books between September of 21 and March of 22. And then at the beginning of March of 22 is when I started to really just go into action on everything. And when I say go into action, I mean I did like everything. I put up my website, did my special passport, opened up a trust, did my revocation of election, changed my driver's license, got new bank accounts. I mean, I did everything all within like probably 4, 5, 6 weeks after the beginning of March of 2022. I finally felt comfortable moving forward, and I felt very comfortable moving forward. So I moved forward in every single area very rapidly. During that time period, I created a trust and I moved all of the assets in the landscaping company into the trust. And I moved the truck titles to the trust. I moved all of the bank accounts into the trust. I moved everything. And then I basically just told the EDD to just go fuck himself, essentially. I left the original corporation there as like a shell. And I was kind of like, I'm not even sure I even let them know that I had done anything with the trust or whatever. I think I literally just told them to go fuck themselves. And if they want to sue, go for it. And if they had access to see what was in the bank accounts and stuff like that, they would have seen that there's nothing there anymore. And when I told the EDD to go fuck themselves and I transferred everything into a trust, that was the last I ever heard of them. And then I was kind of shocked. I was like, damn, I really kicked the government agency's ass real good. I was feeling pretty ballsy. I was feeling pretty tall. I was feeling like I had a big, huge fucking monster nutsack. And I said, all this shit is so fascinating, and this thing was such a big win for me. And I said, well, shit, I really want to continue to learn about this. I want to continue to go down these various rabbit holes. This is so fascinating. I was so fascinated that slowly after that point, I started to do more and more and more. I started with 100, 200 people a month coming to the website. And then by July, I had released the 1.0 contract killer course. And then right after that is when I did all my branding. And then right after that is when I hired my friend as my first publicist. So by the time August of 2022 rolled around, we had all the branding done. We had the 1.0 course, and we had my publicist. And I started going on these shows, like conspiracy shows and stuff. I was going on like 5 shows a week for like a year. And
what's funny about you being kind of thrown into the conspiracy bin, though, is this is literally the law.
I know this is actually like the far. It's actually funny. Like people, like your normal person walking the street is a conspiracy theorist. They are living inside of a conspiracy. The idea that you have to have a driver's license, and they don't know why, they don't know the additional information, they don't know when they signed to get that driver's license, they had to swear under penalty of perjury that they're either a permanent resident of state of California or that they are a U.S. citizen, and they don't know what either of those things mean. And they just checked whichever one seemed to be the closest to what they thought they were. They don't realize that when they sign a W-9 tax form, it says in Section 3, I certify under penalty of perjury that I am a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person defined below, and that the term U.S. person is actually defined below the W-9 in the instruction section of the W-9, and there's almost no chance in hell that anyone who's ever filled out a W-9 is actually a U.S. citizen or other U.S. person. So what's funny is that the whole I'm the only one not living in a conspiracy. That's actually the funniest thing about it.
Yeah, for sure.
My platform is an invitation to leave the conspiracy.
While you're talking just then, though, I am thinking to myself, well, it is legalese in and of itself is like a form of deceptive word magic, which is why following the definitions and doing the work that you do is so important. And based on the story you just told, that's going to be a great segue, because one of the first things and one of the things I want to emphasize is the creation of private trusts, making sure you have it listed as foreign. But before I turn it back over to you for that, I just want to say to anybody listening, Brandon's work is truly practical for anybody. I mean, listen, anybody who has a mortgage, a water bill, a power bill, a credit card, if you pay personal property tax or real estate tax, or if you have a birth certificate or a social security card, or like he's already said, a driver's license, any of that, his work applies to you. So I'm willing to bet it applies to you.
If you're using a computer or a cell phone, most likely it applies to you to watch this. Yes.
Right. So yeah, man, go ahead. So here's my list that I gathered as far as what I would say are your main topics. Primarily and I did try to put these in order. So primarily the definition of person or persons in law, U.S. citizen versus state citizen, 14th Amendment / slaughterhouse cases, negotiable instruments / UCC3. Believe it or not, I actually feel like I understand that better than any of your others, simply because I worked for Wells Fargo for a little while. And
there you go.
I just kind of picked up on things as you were saying them.
Makes sense. Yeah. I mean, that's typically the hardest thing for people to understand.
Right.
Because just the amount of disbelief is really the most difficult thing to overcome. Like, for example, the driving versus traveling thing, people kind of know it's like the DMV is kind of gay. Like, why do I have to go there? Like, the driver's license. Like, well, wait a second, I have rights. Like, I'm an American. Like, why would I need a license to drive? Like there's a little something there to work with. A citizenship. It's sort of like nationality versus citizenship. It's shocking, but there's a little something there to work with. People know that the tax thing is kind of weird, and the citizenship thing is kind of weird, and why is it so complicated? It doesn't need to be so complicated. But the negotiable instruments thing is like a whole different level of what the fuck for most people.
Right. And I would say I was primed for it not only because I worked at Wells Fargo for a few years, but also because the financial Federal Reserve, central banking, the fact, I don't know if you've heard this, but there's arguments that the 16th Amendment was never properly ratified, just like you talk about the 14th Amendment never being
well, the
properly
16th
ratified.
Amendment says right in it that it did not confer any new powers to the Internal Revenue Service or Congress. So the 16th Amendment really, at the end of the day, doesn't mean anything. The 16th Amendment is just a rewording of what the IRS and Congress already had. It's nothing new. They say it right in the court cases for the 16th Amendment. So what happened is the 16th Amendment was nothing more than saying things in a different way that made it more convoluted. Because in actual fact, the 16th Amendment, whether it's passed or whether it's not, it's an irrelevant discussion. It's not even worth arguing because it doesn't make any difference. If it was passed or it wasn't, it makes absolutely no difference whatsoever.
And the only reason I even bring that up is I was primed to, like you said, most people it's disbelief when it comes to the negotiable instrument and UCC3 stuff. For me, that was my red pill, and I worked at Wells Fargo. I was one of the whistleblowers back in 2014, 2015 when they had all that billion-dollar litigation, signing people up for credit cards that they didn't sign up for and savings accounts and all that.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, I actually worked at a branch where we had a branch manager come in, real pretty Spanish lady, so she was bilingual. And she was just taking advantage of the Spanish speaking community, signing them up for all sorts of accounts and basically using their language barrier as like, oh, they totally did. You know what I mean? And then they're like all confused. It was fucked up.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yep. But to continue, the last three topics I had listed as far as your focuses, private trust, which I want to discuss first, passports, and then what I've come to feel is most important, litigation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Passports for a long time, they were the most important thing. And they were the primary part of my platform for probably the first 2 years. Now it's one of the lowest points on the platform, and it's one of the least important, and it's one of the most wrapped up subjects we have. That since December of 24, the passports is just you follow what I say and you just get one, and it's just the same shit every time, and it's like eating a fucking sandwich, and there's just nothing to talk about.
Well, if you already have one, do you still need to send the explanatory statement that you have? And
I would. Oh, you can just get a new one issued. You don't need to. You can get it amended, or you can get a new one issued. Whatever you want to do. Let's say you've had the one you have now for 8 years. You've only got 2 years left. Might as well just go and fucking renew it.
Right. But I was looking at mine, and the only thing, like, I had yet to endorse it. So I was like, if I just endorse this properly, like, am I good there?
To some degree, yeah. I mean, you could do that too. I mean, I'm really kind of anal when it comes to all this stuff, so I would go out and redo it. But it's up to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I really want to get into is the importance of creating foreign private trusts and operating financially through them. There's, that could be a very short discussion, but the part I want to emphasize is, so you get an EIN through the Title 8. I'm sure you can explain that very quickly, but how do you actually leverage that when you go to get the bank account? Like, is there difficulty there? I feel like there's going to be some difficulty there, right?
Nope. No. The only difficulty is they are often very confused. They don't do a lot of trust accounts. To do a trust account, you have to, I learned this the hard way too. You want to dress up nice, and you want to go to the richest town that you can possibly find, even if you need to drive like 100 miles. You want to like, or even more, even 200 or 300 miles if you have to. Like, where do I have to go? You got to ask yourself, what is the absolute richest place that I can possibly drive to and back in one day? That's the place you want to call. Like for me, it'd be Beverly Hills. Call Beverly Hills. Hi, I'm looking to open up some trust accounts for a foreign trust. They're probably going to want you to say that they don't understand any of this terminology, but they're going to want to say it's in or having to do with one of the 50 states. So what I do is I naturalize it into California, open up the bank account, and then I naturalize it right back out of California. That's how I do it.
Right. And I know what you're saying there, but can you explain for anybody who might not know what exactly naturalization is?
Yeah. So let me do a screen share.
It's basically just declaring it.
Yeah, they finally changed Zoom to where when I do a screen share, it pops up as a request, which is absolutely amazing because the amount of shows I've been on where it takes them a half an hour to figure out how to activate a screen share is ridiculous. So if we go to 8 USC 1101, can you see my screen yet? Is it activated?
I hit allow, but it's not showing.
Oh, let me activate it.
There we go.
Cornell. So this is Title 8, which is called Aliens and Nationality. This is the definition section that has to do with nationality, passports, whatever, right? So the first thing that's always good to cover, I haven't really covered much of this on a show in quite some time. Well, so it's interesting to kind of be back in this after quite some time, right? So 8 USC 1101 subsection B3, the term person means an individual or an organization. The word individual, I could do a whole show on that just by itself. It's kind of shocking to hear it, but and it might even be upsetting for some people to hear it. The legal definition of the word individual is a Negro or a sole proprietorship. And I know that sounds like the most insane thing anyone's ever heard in their entire life, but without going on a 5-hour expedition to explain to you as to why and how that is, let's just trust me on that for now. For anyone that wants to get into that and they'd like to learn more about that, you can go to williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com. You're going to click on this right here, a treatise on the word person. And this is basically the length of a small book. This explains the entire historical breakdown of terms like resident, individual, person, etc. I take you through tons of Supreme Court cases, and I basically break down and show you everything about how and why the term individual eventually, over the course of the past 150 years, came to mean a Negro or a sole proprietorship. But for now, you're just going to have to believe me because otherwise it's just too difficult. And then we have this term organization, right? The term organization is defined in 8 USC 1101 subsection A28. The term organization means, but is not limited to, an organization, corporation, company, partnership, association, trust, foundation, or fund, and includes a group of persons, whether or not incorporated, permanently or temporarily associated together with joint action on any subject or subjects. So organization means basically everything. You could almost replace organization and say anything and everything. So if I were to read this in English, the term person means a Negro or a sole proprietorship or anything and everything else. Literally. That's basically what the term person means. Okay. Now, this term person is what can get a passport. So you say, well, Brandon, does that mean a corporation can get a passport? Yes. Brandon, does that mean a partnership can get a passport? Yes. Brandon, does that mean a trust can get a passport? Yes. Brandon, does that mean a foundation or fund can get a passport? Yes.
Are people or are persons such as trusts actually doing this?
I've recommended it many times as kind of something silly for my audience to run out and try to do. I don't think anyone's tried to do it. Eventually, I'll get bored and do it. But I have been asking people to do it for quite some time.
Right.
I hope
Legally and lawfully.
legally that's exactly how it works. Okay.
Right.
And the sole proprietorship has the same name as you. So you also got to think too, you don't even know what's on your passport. Is it you or is it a sole proprietorship, which is called an individual?
Well, I've heard you talk about that, and the fact that they will not take it without the social security number kind of gives away that it is for the ens legis or the sole proprietorship, correct? And
yeah, pretty much everyone's passport. If you had to put a social security number on it, it was issued to a sole proprietorship, not to you as the man or woman or whatever you want to call it. So that's a whole nother conversation. Anyways, so now that we know what the definition of the word person is when it comes to nationality and that kind of thing, right? Now we have to go to the definition of the term naturalization, right? Because now we know what a person is, and so naturalization has something to do with persons, right? Of course. 8 USC 1101 subsection A23, the term naturalization means the conferring of nationality of a state upon a person from that definition after birth by any means whatsoever. So if I were to say this in English, the term naturalization means just saying that someone has the allegiance to any state. State can be defined as any nation, any group, anything. It could be New Zealand. It could be the Knights Templar. It could be like in Scotland, you have people's families. They have their own crests. They have their own coat of arms. That's actually a nation. That would also be a state. State of Williams, the family of Williams would be a state. California would be a state. So it's not just the 50 states of the Union. People see that word and they think the 50 states of the Union. No, it's any political body is the definition of the word state. So the term naturalization means basically saying that you're that the person of which you're referring to has the allegiance to a political body after birth by any means whatsoever. Because nationality, the definition of nationality just has to do with allegiance. And it's totally separate from citizenship. Everything we're talking about right now has absolutely nothing to do with citizenship. Nationality and citizenship are two entirely separate subjects. You have to have nationality first before you can have citizenship. Citizenship is a secondary section. It's a secondary activity. It's a secondary talking point. So we're not even talking about citizenship. We're only talking about nationality. Nationality has to do with allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. That in itself, when we put our hand on our heart, when we were in middle school, in that moment, we were technically naturalizing into the United States in that moment every single time we did it as children. And there's some people who have told me, well, Brennan, that's probably why they had us do it. Could be. And now they don't do that anymore. So you got to think, what's that mean, right? So let's read this again, and I'll try to read it in English again. The term naturalization means basically saying that something has the allegiance to a political body after whatever that person's birth may be, and you do it by literally any means whatsoever.
So when you're dealing with the banker, is there anything that they say, well, you need some sort of proof or documents that you've naturalized into California for the purpose of opening this account? Or how does that?
So what they want is, so with a trust, that's why you go to the rich areas, because the rich areas that they open trust accounts on a at least somewhat regular basis.
Right.
If you go to the poorer areas, they're going to think you're some kind of scammer, or we've had people literally like told to leave because they think that they're like scamming or like weird, like fucked up people. Whereas if you go to like the rich area in town, they think that you are a very, very advanced, astute businessman, lawyer, accountant, or financial.
Yeah, my whole name is William Garnett Carson IV. I could pull this off easy.
Yeah, so if you dress up nice and you get a haircut and you brush your teeth and you smell decent, and I always say bring a little briefcase. That's like always the finishing touch. Always bring your little leather briefcase. Bring yourself a nice little leather briefcase. If you go in there and you look like that, they're going to think you're some kind of like lawyer or some kind of like financial professional or whatever. Whereas if you do that in the poor part of town, they're going to think you're some kind of scam artist or con artist. It's just kind of a hilarious thing. It's just a weird thing. Opening up trust accounts is not common. It's just not a common thing people do. It's not a common thing people talk about. And the people who are doing it, and the people who are processing these things, they have no idea what they're doing. They're just following some sort of checklist. Okay.
Yeah. As a former banker, I can attest to that.
So, this is the actual trust indenture, right? This is the whole contract all the way through, 23 pages, right? You're not going to take that into the bank. You're only going to take the certificate of trust into the bank. This is all the information that the bank needs. They don't need anything more than this. This is all the information they need. They need the names of the trustees, the name of the trust, when the trust was created, who the grantor or executor is, who are the currently acting trustees, what are the basic powers of the trustees, what powers do they have in relationship to this bank account? Is the trust revocable or irrevocable? They typically would like to know that. This line, I don't know what this line is. It's just kind of like here. They need to know the EIN number. They have to have the EIN number to open up the account.
Right.
And then they want to know basically like what's the name that the assets are titled under, which typically is just the name of the trust, right? Non-statutory. I'm not even sure they need to know that, but that's in here. And then this is the part that I ended up adding. So I had just this first 10 when I first started doing my tests. And then I was running into some difficulties because they said that the trust has to be in, they didn't even really know how to even describe it to me over the phone. It has to be in or under or something, one of the 50 states. And I said, well, how about the American Samoa? And they went to their legal team and blah, blah, blah. And they came back like a week later and they said, no, it has to be under one of the 50 states. So I added this point number 11. It's a foreign-born trust that has been naturalized into state of California for the purposes of getting a bank account opened. That seemed to work. And then as soon as the bank account was opened, I just simply naturalized it out of California.
Perfect.
Because again, naturalization is defined as the basically saying that something is pledging the allegiance to a political body after birth by any means whatsoever. So you can naturalize, 460 billion times per second if you wanted to. And you can naturalize every single person, every single, again, the definition of the word person is a Negro, a sole proprietorship, or anything and everything else.
So do you have multiple trusts per for your law group for all of the different ways that you get paid, basically?
Yeah, and I can make a whole bunch in a day. If I need 6 or 7, I can just make them.
And you open separate trust accounts for each trust?
You can, if you need that. Yeah, you can title things under a trust without having to open up a bank account for it. But if you want a bank account for each individual trust, yes, you would have to do individual bank accounts for each individual trust.
Got it. Now, 2 other, I guess, more niche or things I've heard you talk about, but you might not focus on, are getting a power of attorney over your ens legis, as well as trademarking your ens legis. What are the benefits of doing these things, and how did you go about doing it?
So I hired someone to help me do the trademark. You can see my trademark by going to williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com, go on the About page, scroll down to my bio section, and then inside here, you're going to find links to all my various cases. I have a name change case in California, 23 STCP 02865. I have a link to view information on that on Trellis. My registered trademark number for the USTPO is here. This is the link for that. I have a perfected UCC1 security interest. I have a link to see that under the Secretary of State of the State of California. This is actually a copy. It's not the it's not linked to the actual website that you can go and look it up. And then I have my durable power of attorney made between myself and the sole proprietorship, which is available here in PDF form. So I have all these documents available. But if you go to and click on my trademark, it goes to the USPTO page, and then you can see all of the information under the trademark that I have completed through the USPTO. You can see the full timeline that I went through, all the different steps that I had to go through to get that completed. And you can see all the information on it here. And the answer to your question is the name change is important just to separate yourself out from the sole proprietorship. And then we did the name change first. The guy who I was working with, who I hired to help me at the beginning of doing all this, we did the name change first, and then we did the USPTO filing second, right? You can see the name change here. So this was done, and then once this was done, we did the trademark. So what section in the USC talks about registered trademark violation, right? 1114 or something. Yeah, 15 USC 1114, right? So if we look up 15 USC 1114, this is under the subchapter for the general provisions of trademarks. So any person who shall, without the consent of the registrant, use in commerce any reproduction, counterfeit, copy, or colorable imitation of a registered mark in connection with the sale, offering, for sale, distribution, or advertising of any goods or services on or in connection with which such use is likely to cause confusion or to cause mistake or to deceive or reproduce, copy, or colorable imitate a registered mark and apply such reproduction, counterfeit, copy, or colorable imitation to labels, signs, prints, packages, wrappers, receptacles, or advertisements needed to be used in commerce, upon or in connection with the sale, offering, for sale, distribution, blah, 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 blah. So when you do a registered trademark on your own name, you're taking control over anyone using that name anywhere. For example, credit reporting agencies. They're reporting this information underneath this name, and they're selling this information in commerce, and they're creating a confusion involving this name. So no one's ever seen anyone do this, and when my recent reel on YouTube on Instagram went super viral, well over 1 million hits, and everybody said, a lot of people in the comments were saying this is all bullshit, this is all bullshit. Well, just because someone's never brought this kind of claim doesn't mean the claim itself is bullshit. If they're selling information about this particular name and they're making money by selling information on this name, once it becomes trademarked, that's a very, very delicate situation. They are using that name commercially to sell financial information as regards to that name. Now that I have trademarked that name, they're going to be getting a knock on the door from the process server here very soon. We've been working on that case for a while because they are not going to be able to do that any longer.
And you said in terms of the trademark itself, you paid someone to assist you with obtaining it?
Yeah, it's the same as any other trademark. It's not different than any other trademark. Trademarking any other name.
Anything about that? Okay.
Yeah, so there's 1 million people that can help you trademark. It's the same process. It's just you're trademarking your name instead of trademarking some other business name.
And in terms of the name change, was that just an affidavit you submitted to the court?
No, you can go down to your local courthouse, and you can ask them for a name change petition, and they'll give you the documents. They'll give you the cover letter. They won't tell you how to fill them out. Well, let me take that back. So the definition of legal advice is giving someone advice on their own personal, private legal situation.
Right.
Most people don't even know that, and most people working at the courts don't even know that. Anything that would be part of your argument, your case, or your cause of action would definitely for sure be classified as legal advice. Which box do I check on a cover letter? It's a little bit more questionable as to whether or not that's legal advice. Where do I put my address would not be legal advice. You see the difference?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So the people, it depends on your questions, and it depends on what you ask and how you ask it, and that kind of thing. Because if they hand you a petition form and they hand you a cover letter, if it's something very, very simple and mechanical, like what box do I put here, but if it's like a whole bunch of boxes and it says like, what kind of case is this? And you're like, what kind of case is this? Which box do I check? They're not going to be able to answer that kind of a question for you, because that would be kind of like skirting the line of legal advice, right? But if it was like, what is the definition of this word? Or here is my situation. Which box do I check? They may dance around that one a little bit. These various kinds of questions. Plus, another thing you can do, which is really effective, is just fill it out as best you can and just throw it in there and submit it. And then if something is wrong with it, they'll kick it back out, and they will be very specific as to what's wrong with it when they kick it back out again. That's typically how I do it. I just fill it out, fucking however, and just throw that motherfucker at the teller and pay them. And then they kick it back out and they say, nope, this, and this. And I go, great. And I fix those. And I just throw the motherfucker under the teller again and pay them. And then I just keep doing that over and over again until they accept it. And then by the time they accept it, now the next time you do it, you just do it the same way. You pull up all the same, you have all your shit saved and you got scanned in the computer. Next time you do it, you just pull up your scanned file and you just follow all the same shit that you did last time. And then now you're not going to have those kickbacks. So really everything I do in litigation it's only difficult the first time.
So I'm just trying to picture the situation. Did they look at you funny when they see you're changing your name from all caps Brandon Joe Williams to Brandon Joe Williams with, just the 3 capital letters?
No, they had no reaction to it at all whatsoever. And then when the day actually came where you had to actually show up, I arrived early, and before the court had even opened, there was 2 or 3 people who had arrived early, me and I think 2 other people. I arrived early mainly because going from here to downtown LA, you don't know if it's going to be 20 minutes or an hour and a half. So I just left really, really early. I didn't want to be late for this. It's like, oh my God, and the lady came out. It was just a clerk or something like that. And she said, okay. She said, you guys are here early. What's your names? And she got my name and she got the name of the 2 or 3 other people that were there. She went into the courtroom. She talked to the judge. She came back out and she said, yours has been approved, yours has been approved, and yours has been approved. Go down to the clerk, ask for a copy, and they'll give you a copy with the judge's signature on it. I never even stepped into the physical courtroom.
Awesome. That's a good information and a good story.
To this day, I have been involved in 10 lawsuits. Mm-hmm. That doesn't include my name change. It doesn't include my trademark. To this day, I have never stepped foot in a courtroom. To this day, ever, in any case. It's all just paper that has been electronically filed into the various cases. The only time I've ever been close to being in a courtroom is doing my name change, showing up early, being in the hallway, and then being told it was approved. I was literally right outside of the courtroom doors. That's the closest I've ever been to the inside of a courtroom in 17 months of doing litigation all over the country.
Actually, I did have a question about the one case that was dismissed in terms of the conditional versus unconditional. But before you answer that, I did want to finish up those last two pieces on your about page. What's the benefit of a UCC1 filing, and what's the benefit of after getting the name change? And then I don't think it matters whether you get the trademark first or not, but what's the benefit of the POA on your ends Legis?
The POA is just to clarify the contract that I have with the sole proprietorship, basically. It also puts forth a presumption for people who are new to all this information. One of the most important things in all of this information is the federal rule of evidence. It's also the same in pretty much any state. So it's federal or state typically, is Rule 301. In a civil case, unless a federal statute or these rules provide otherwise, the party against whom a presumption is directed has the burden of producing evidence to rebut the presumption. So when you have a POA and you press it forward as a presumption, now they basically have to prove that all of that's false, and they're just never going to do it. So basically what happens is when you start doing stuff like this and you start taking actions and you start pushing forth presumptions, you're actually basically the one who is creating the facts of the case that structure the case.
Got it.
And since everything is pretty much a case or moving towards a case or could move towards a case, I treat everything as though it is a case. I just operate my whole life as though everything's a court case.
Right. I'm kind of picturing it as like an insular layer in between.
Because if it becomes a court case in 6 months and you've been treating it as a court case this whole time, you're in a really, 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 really good position. In fact, if you start treating everything like court cases, nobody ever sues you ever again.
Yeah.
It never happened. I've never been sued. They won't even countersue me when I sue them. That's been the most shocking thing. I beg them to counterclaim, and they won't do it. They flat out refuse to sue me. I'm in court with the SBA, filing affidavits under penalty of perjury saying that I am never going to pay on this thing. I never have. Fuck you. And they still won't counterclaim me. I'm placing the evidence on the record saying that this thing, I mean, I say more than that. I say it's already paid and this and that.
But well, that's more the truth, technically.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is that when you start treating everything underneath things like Rule 301, nobody will be suing you anymore. You'll be suing everyone, and no one will be suing you. And I'm living proof of that.
So the last one was the UCC1. What's the benefit to doing that?
The UCC1 is so if you have a security interest, which basically means like some type of ownership. Ownership, it breaks down into a whole bunch of different subcategories. People don't understand that. If you have some kind of ownership over something, a UCC1 perfects a security interest. So if you have, let's say, like 12% ownership in some company, a UCC1 basically registers that 12% ownership in a way where if you needed to take legal action, the UCC1 becomes like the most powerful or primary weapon that is used to take legal action for some sort of collateral that you have claimed as a security interest on. It's a little bit more complicated. Basically, it's like if you state that something is yours or that you have partial ownership of something, a UCC1 finalizes and perfects and really solidifies that claim. Let's say like that.
Gotcha. Kind of like the medallion stamp in the mortgage world, huh?
No, a medallion stamp is a notarization for an endorsement. That's totally different. This has to do with it's sort of kind of almost like having the title for a car. Filing a UCC1 is almost sort of like having a certificate of title for a car, sort of. Over whatever it is that's listed in the UCC1. Like, if someone says, "Oh, it's my car," and they don't produce any documentation,
I see.
and I
Okay.
say, "No, it's my
Right.
car
It kind
actually,"
of
and
relates to
look,
Rule
I have a
301.
CC1, I have a
Right.
UCC1.
Got it.
The court's going to go, "Well, holy fuck, this guy's got a UCC1. This guy's got nothing. It must be this guy's car. He's the one with the UCC1."
That makes
You
sense.
see?
Yeah. So again, it's a litigation protection instrument.
It's a presumption.
Right.
Everything essentially is in the most basic essence of presumption. So if you have a presumption,
make a claim, that's your
so if they made a claim, why don't they have anything to prove that claim?
Right.
Oh, well, you could have filed a UCC1. Why didn't you? That's how I would fight it. If I was in court and I had the UCC1 and they didn't, why didn't you file a UCC1? Oh, I didn't understand. You didn't understand? What do you mean you didn't understand? Oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Well, did you not understand, or did you just not care enough to actually state a claim in a legal way that could be, that's the way lawyers do it. Lawyers just gaslight the ever-loving fuck out of you, and that's how they beat everybody.
Got it. So let's talk about your cases a little bit. The one case that's been dismissed, you said something about they declared that it was a conditional promise or a conditional order to pay. So what makes something a conditional rather than an unconditional order or promise to pay?
Yeah, so that's my very, very first case that I had with one of my clients. That was a pretty rough case. It was my very, very first time up to bat. So it was definitely a rocky ride. We went back and forth and some stuff, and that was definitely my rockiest litigation ever. To answer your question is answered in UCC 3-106. A promise or order is unconditional unless it states an express condition to payment, that the promise or order is subject to or governed by another record, or that rights or obligations with respect to the promise or order are stated in another record. So
now in my mind, I'm thinking, how does that make most car loan, like with that,
in that first case, so if we pull up that first case, we're going to go to williamsonwilliamslawfirm.com, current and previous litigation, and then that's case number 1. So we're going to look at the recap docket, and then here's the complaint right here. So what was the original claims? The original claims were yeah, see, that was a big mistake. I put my name all over this complaint. That was not good. I shouldn't have done that. I mean, I learned my lesson for sure. Let's see here. So we have the documents. We have the breakdowns, essentially, of the fact that it was written, it was signed, it was dated, it's an unconditional promise to pay, right? And then as we go deeper and deeper into the case, we have the judge eventually issues a order. Let's see here. I think it's right here. So this is where Susan Richard Nelson gives a full breakdown of everything that she sees. And one of the things she talks about is that these documents, and she talks about how I'm practicing law license, which I'm not, which is fucking hilarious. And they never did anything. It's like, hello, I'm here. I'm all over the internet. If you can do something about it, fucking do something about it. They're not going to, and they haven't, because it's bullshit. But the other part of this that they said is that she goes into great detail talking about how they're not unconditional promises to pay, because there's various like home checks and like things that had to happen before the payment was actually going to occur. It was like, if this, and this happens and all of the checks work and we do a foundation check and we do this and we do that and everything's good and we get a clean bill of health on this property, then at that point you promise to pay X amount. That's how a lot of the documents were written. And I knew going into this case that the only problem I was going to run into is the difference between unconditional and conditional. And I did a lot of research on it before we went into this case. I truly felt as though they were unconditional. But then after reading this judgment, I decided to change my mindset on it, and I started to review UCC3 in greater detail. And actually, this judgment was the one that got me to go and do the 6-part journey into UCC3 YouTube video series, where I go through all of UCC3 on the video with the audience. This judgment is the judgment that basically motivated me to go and do those videos, because I wasn't sure. I was pretty sure they were unconditional promises to pay when I went into this case, but then after I read this order, I kind of realized they weren't unconditional orders to pay. And as you'll see in all the cases since this time, that this has not been an issue. This has never been brought up as an issue. So that was there was a bunch of issues in this first case. Like, for example, me putting my name on everything, that was stupid. Then I became the center point of the entire case, which is fucking retarded, because I really didn't have that much to do with the case. But because my website and it's also goofy and wild, I became the centerpiece of the whole case, which is fucking stupid. That was stupid. We used Title 18 crimes that are really, you don't have what's called a private right of action for those. So I learned that lesson. And then I learned the lesson of unconditional versus conditional. And then since that time, I have not repeated those issues in any subsequent case. And ironically enough, that first case is the only case where the judge actually wrote anything of any real substance. If you look at the other cases all the way down, every single case since case one, it's just, they've all been basically just thrown out with like almost no information as to why or how. Or like they'll just say sovereign citizen, or they'll just say like vapor money theory, and they don't give any additional information. There's no talking, there's no breakdown. This first case with Susan Nelson is the only case where the judge actually wrote anything of real substance. So while she bashed me in her opinion, and while she did, I learned more from this opinion from case one than I ever did in any of the other cases, because I can't figure out what's going on most of the time in most of the other cases.
So my concern is what is going to prevent them from placing conditions on loan documents or currency exchanges once they find out about this.
Well, they already know about all this. This is the whole game, and they can't place conditions on it, because if they place conditions on it, then the instrument itself is not exchangeable for Federal Reserve notes.
Ah, I see. So, okay.
So it's a physical impossibility that they'll ever put conditions on anything. It'll never happen.
So, no, I hear you, but then so specific to that case, case one, were they not going to take that document, or they were going to be unable to swap that for Federal Reserve notes, that specific document?
There probably is something closer to the closing. There's probably another promissory note closer to the closing. Once everything, once all the conditions had been met, I assume like at the close of the property,
okay,
that would be the actual unconditional promise.
The picture is coming clearer now, so yeah.
But there was like a whole treasure trove of documents that I looked at, and I was going through, and I was trying to determine. That was the main thing that I was trying to figure out. I was like, are these unconditional or conditional promises to pay? Some of them are very unclear. So the thing is that that was the Achilles heel. I knew that was the Achilles heel from the beginning, but at the same time, I thought we had a really good case, and I also thought that we would be able to actually talk about what makes each individual document conditional versus unconditional. But because it was my first case, because I had no fucking clue what I was doing, it just became this hot, sloppy mess. But by the end of it, coming out of it, I learned all of these things. And then you'll see in all my subsequent cases, none of those. So each case, if it gets dismissed or if it like, for example, if you look at a lot of my other cases, like if you look at my Amex case, the judge doesn't say shit. He says something about fucking some bullshit about vapor money theory, and that's it, really. So if you look at my Amex case and you go to the judgment on that, which I have to do another screen share, there's nothing really to learn. There's nothing really, which is really sad, because if I could just get an opinion, even if it's a long opinion about how much of a piece of shit I am, like from Judge Nelson, that's perfect. Because if you tell me how much of a piece of shit I am for page after page after page, then now I can go out and I can fix all those things. And then by the time I come back around again, all those things are going to be fixed. The problem is since Judge Nelson, pretty much no one will tell me what's wrong. So I started having to go to appeals. So now everything I do all goes to appeals. And I'm hoping that if I lose at appeals, at least they'll tell me why. And then if they tell me why, then I can fix it. And then I come back and then I'm start again at the district court and then win or lose. And then if I lose, I go, if they won't tell me why, then I go to appeals and then they'll tell me why. And then I can fix it. And then it's just the same process over and over and over again until I win. It's really not that complicated, right? But if you go into
Amex case still in limbo, or did they dismiss it on? I mean, what grounds did they dismiss it on if they dismissed it?
vapor money theory and the 1099A, which is like one teeny itty bitty little part of the whole complaint, like basically just horseshit, complete horseshit. So I went to appeals and I filed in my opening brief, which you can see if you go back to current and previous litigation. Appeals cases are separate cases, technically. So you have to go to an entirely different docket to get into the appeals cases. Right. And I have all those listed on here as well. So you go down to case number 7, appeals on case 4, Amex. Click here. So you'll see the case was opened, and then my opening brief was filed in. And then they filed the motion to dismiss because I was supposedly late for filing my appeal by 1 day, which is complete horseshit. Obviously, I filed in opposition to that. I'm like, this is complete bullshit. And just recently, an order was filed on May 27th saying that the court agrees that it is bullshit, and they threw out that motion to dismiss. So now, if you just read even just this text, now they issued a new schedule, and then the defendants have to file in their answering brief by June 30th.
Cool.
Which is
it's only
they got plenty of time.
Less than 20 days away. Yeah,
they'll probably try to pull some other bullshit or whatever. So they tried to pull some bullshit like this in my SBA appeal, and I filed in a motion to compel them to, if you go into my SBA appeal, which is here, you'll see they filed in some bullshit. The Department of Justice is the attorneys on this case. They filed in some bullshit. I filed in the opening brief, and then they filed in a motion to stay the proceedings and a motion for summary disposition, which is just horse shit. So I filed in response and opposition to all of that, and then I filed in a motion to compel them, to force them to file in the answering brief. And I'm learning all this as I go. So it's like, they play these stupid fucking games, and you got to bash them over the head and force them to take the next step and stop wasting fucking time. And I'm just learning this and getting better with it as I go. When I did my case 1, the one with Susan Nelson, I had no fucking clue about anything. I didn't even know what a response and opposition even was. I didn't even know how to file it. So Joey was the one who knew all that shit.
It's funny that you brought him up. That was literally on my mind, is why do you think he's been more successful?
Well, Joey, so if you go to williamsandwilliamslawfirm.com and you go to the About section, you can see my right-hand man, Joey Kimbrough, and you go down, and he's down here, right? And he has the case numbers for the various cases that he's won, right? He's won many cases, which is why I started working with him, right? The reason why he won is because he won in the credit space and stuff like that, and he structured all of his stuff very similar to what the courts normally see. So he won by studying and staying along the line of what's considered pretty common and normal in the courts. And he just basically, the stances that he took and the positions that he took were positions that are kind of impossible to fight, and they're not. He wasn't asking for large sums of money and stuff like that. So he went a completely different route. I went full Rambo, M60s in both hands, Arnold Schwarzenegger, going after banks and government agencies for hundreds of millions of dollars immediately right out the gate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's why it's like playing a video game on the absolute hardest difficulty right away, right out the gate. That's basically what I did. I didn't really even realize that's what I was doing. I actually thought I was playing the game on the easiest setting because I knew the information so well. I thought that it didn't matter if it was the DOJ. It didn't matter if it was the government. It didn't matter if it was the banks. I was going to win with almost no effort. When I learned the hard way that that's not even remotely the truth of the matter. They have a lot of games. They have a lot of bullshit type of motions and stuff, and they stay the proceedings and they file in all sorts of horse shit and presumptions, and they try to fucking throw you off, and they try to get you emotionally flustered, and they've got all these deceptive practices that they will try to pull all the way through. They will dig their heels in, they will lie, they will fucking do whatever it takes to derail the case the entire time, and you have to keep beating them and putting them back on the train tracks over and over and over and over and over. That's basically what litigation is in a nutshell.
Yeah. Now, I know you have your the module, portion of your contract killer course that is the litigation. Is that the next? Are you going to be having a contract killer 3.0, or is a new like litigation module coming before the contract 3.0?
I don't know yet if I'm going to split it up or not. I don't know yet.
Gotcha.
I might just make the 3.0 course be like everything, and it'd be like 100 videos long. Or I may split it up to where you have the contract killer course and then you have the litigation course, and it's two totally separate courses. I don't know yet.
I gotcha.
Most likely, it's just going to be one big course. And the reason why is because we're getting to the point now where you really just not litigating is just stupid at this point.
Yeah. So
it sucks. It's annoying. It's scary, but then you just fucking do it. And then once you just fucking do it, it becomes super easy and fun and exciting, and you feel like a fucking great god. So the way this is going is not to placate stupid fucking fears. It's just quit being a fucking dumb bitch and just do it. That's really where this is kind of going.
So I calculated it yesterday. I've watched about 90 hours of your content over the last 30 days.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
One shift I've noticed is that more recently you seem to be more, I guess, I can't think of the word that I want to use here, but you seem like you'd rather leverage the public rather than going full private. Are you becoming that way when it comes to the driving versus traveling thing?
No,
too?
I do both. Both. Private's easy. Private is just you have your private trust. Get rid of your driver's license. Have your private trust. Like private, it's. I don't understand how people run around and they're talking about private this and what is there to talk about? There's nothing to talk about. You got gold coins. You've got gold coins, and you've got a private trust. And
so, I guess more specifically, I would assume you're operating privately, just based on what I've picked up.
Everything, all of it. When people talk private versus public, it's the stupidest fucking thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Do both.
So, well, I
all
guess
the time.
when it comes to driving, though, you can't really do that, right? You either need to have a driver's license and certificates of titles and registrations, or you
Well,
go full
fine,
private.
but if you're public and you have a certificate of title, you've split ownership on the title. The state
Right.
has legal ownership and you
Right.
have equitable ownership. That's also a great position to be in as
That's
well, because then
yeah.
every single time anything happens to you that doesn't benefit you, you sue the state and you say, trustee, legal owner of said vehicle, trustee, I'm not being benefited by having to pay registration. I'm not being benefited by having to pay
For
insurance.
gas.
I'm
Right.
not being benefited by having to pay for gas. Because the thing is that the way that it's structured is they own the car and you're
Right.
entitled to the profits of using it as a motor vehicle. So the thing
Right.
is that if you're entitled to the profits of using it as a motor vehicle, that means you don't need to pay any of the expenses on it. You don't own the goddamn thing. It doesn't fucking benefit you at all. So sue the city every single time you have to pay for gas.
Yeah. No, I heard you explain that before, and I was like, I almost feel like that's the better option. I mean, at least for
Frankly,
me.
it is.
Yes.
Frankly, it is for a lot
I'm
of
thinking
people.
about doing that. Like, just send them a gas bill and a repair bill at the end of the year, and then if they
Send
don't
them a
pay
gas
it,
bill and a repair
that's when
bill,
you get
and
into the
then
litigation.
you sue them. The tort claim is going to be trust fraud.
Right, because as you explained, the whole system is basically a trust system, and they're the trustee. Registered owner, if you look at the definition, means beneficiary.
That's correct. So anything the presumption under 301 all the time in every single activity of your entire life, the presumption is whatever they're doing is benefiting you. The ultimate power, and when you see these memes of people that are laying down and there's the whole game board is over top of their bodies and it says all you have to do is just stand up. The legal definition of standing up is to simply start figuring out what actually benefits you and what doesn't, and then start openly communicating and suing based off of those decisions. I didn't realize that I was only the beneficial owner of this car. I thought I had legal and beneficial ownership. Boy, was I ignorant. Well, now that I understand, I'm very excited, and I actually want to operate much better as the beneficiary. But at the same time, the trustee is now going to have to operate much better as the trustee. The following listed items have been heretofore assumed or presumed under Rule of Evidence 301 to be benefiting the beneficiary. Item number 1, being pulled over by the police. Item number 2, speed limits. Item number 3, stop signs. Whatever. List anything you want. Smog. Having to go and get your car smogged. If you want it smogged, trustee, you fucking come pick it up, take it, smog it, bring it back clean and with a full tank of gas. Otherwise, it doesn't benefit me.
Right. Exactly.
If you want to smog it, come get your car, take it down to the smog, you smog it.
Beautiful.
Start suing them for trust fraud. It's trust fraud because the thing is that it's only fraud once you communicate the fact that these things are not benefiting you. Because the presumption is they are benefiting you. Right. Until you rebut those presumptions, there is no fraud.
But then once you do make the claim, that's the Rule of Evidence 301. Now they have to.
That's correct.
Respond
so now,
to the claim.
But you have to give them 2 options. They have 2 options because there is no involuntary servitude for them either. They're not your slave either. They have 2 options. They can either they have to now follow all of your stipulations as the beneficiary, and they have to follow all the things of which you feel benefit you, or they always have the second option, which is to release legal title.
Right. And then
they're not your slave. Just because they're your trustee doesn't mean they're your slave. A trustee can always say, fuck it, I'm done, I'm out of here. So they always have that second option. So if they want to collapse the trust, they can do that too. And then at that point, they would release legal title to you, and then you would retain legal and beneficial ownership.
Right.
And then there wouldn't be a trustee anymore. And then that would require you to turn in your driver's license, and that would require you to turn in your license plates and your registration. License and registration. You can't have those plates and you can't have that registration unless they're the legal owner and you're the equitable owner. If they collapse the trust and they release legal ownership, you have to go and turn in those plates and that registration. You can't keep those things.
That makes sense. Let's see. Oh, on the very last, I guess the bonus video at the very end of your Contract Killer 2.0, you talk about doing away with the non-citizen national status. Is that simply because we're identifying as lowercase state citizens?
Yes, because if you go into what's a non-citizen national of the United States, the Department of State is so positive that it's only people from American Samoa and Swains Islands. They won't even talk about it. They're
Gotcha.
like, fuck you, that's it, end of story. So if they don't want to talk about it and they don't want to even have the conversation, then you can't have a conversation with someone who doesn't want to have a conversation. So if that's the way they want to play the conversation, then I guess we're not. The way I look at it is actions speak louder than words. If we're here and we love America and we're trying to push forth America in a beautiful way and bring back, state citizenship, which is a totally legal right of ours, that proves through our actions, which speak louder than words, that we have pledged allegiance to the United States. So if we've pledged allegiance to the United States through our actions, citizenship is irrelevant. It makes us a national of the United States.
Right.
But the Department of State does not want to have that conversation. So
Gotcha.
until if the day comes that the Department of State all of a sudden wants to have that conversation, I'll probably get a phone call because I'm probably the guy who should probably be at the forefront of that conversation.
Now, I did have one UCC3 question on here, and it's just in terms of simplifying the whole thing. Would requesting payoff statements be the way to go? Like, just request a payoff statement for my student loan.
They started to not even send us these things. I started laughing so fucking hard. They started to deny bills. They won't even send bills for a lot of these things now, which is just, God, that's funny. Because think about this. If I call you and I request a bill and I say, I want to pay this thing off, I'm super excited, I need a bill, and you flat out refuse to send me a bill, you can't sue me now for non-payment.
Right.
So it's like,
I've made an attempt in good faith.
Yeah, it's like, well, wait a second there. I wanted to. So if you sued me after I asked you for a bill and you wouldn't send me one, the first thing I'm going to do in the lawsuit is ask for a bill. What do you think? The real truth of all of this is that these organizations and these banks and these people, they literally just don't have a fucking clue about anything.
Yeah,
that's really the honest to God truth. You're talking to a guy who has seen a lot of shit. I've read a lot of emails. I've seen a lot of body cam footage. I've seen so many things that makes your head spin. And I'll tell you, if there's one thing I have realized, is that these people are not intentionally evil, doing things to try to. They literally just don't have. The whole world is like a giant fucking goddamn kindergarten at recess, bro. I'm telling you.
Yeah, insane asylum for sure.
Yeah. You have to become an amazing educator if you want to succeed in this. There's really no other option. Yes, litigation can kind of get around that to some degree. You can just kind of beat people's heads in and say, you can use all the same terminology they use. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Boy, they do not like it when you use that on them. Oh boy, and it's delicious. It's beyond delicious. Because I'm in that position all the time where I know 10 times more than anybody else in the room.
I can only imagine.
It's always a situation where, ignorance of the law is not an excuse. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse, So, but the thing is that if you become a great educator, you can get around, you can get more things done. Always, it's always the better choice.
Well, my next one is not so much a question, but a talking point. And after listening to so much content of yours recently, I have a feeling you might run with this one for a little while. So I'm just going to read it to you exactly how I have it written. De facto versus de jure / the usurpation of America.
Yeah, let me get another drink for that one. We're still recording, right?
Oh, yeah.
We got to go to Department of State.
So just a couple quick facts about myself and why this particular point is the one I wanted you to do more of a deep dive on. Grandfather on my father's side actually retired as a 3-star general in the Marine Corps. So I was raised in that fold, in the military fold, kind of patriotic. And I love the ideas of America, right? But obviously, as I became more and more red pilled, which I wouldn't consider myself red pilled anymore. I'm just more spiritual and God first at this point. I really like your friend Cameron, by the way. I'm a partial amputee myself.
Oh yeah, he's fantastic. My God, he's got just energy through the fucking roof.
he's really awesome. I just love just his energy in general. And so some of the things that you talk about in terms of the 14th Amendment, the slaughterhouse cases, it just, I've always, ever since I found that out, I've thought about just the nuances that some of these people that were honorable people, like your Justice Miller, that were trying to do the right thing, but were in compromised positions, let's just say.
I don't think he was. But anyways, continue. I don't think he was compromised at all.
Well, maybe not compromised, but just the overall atmosphere of the time. He was just trying to keep the peace.
Well, he wanted the slaves. He was actually a doctor. He got a doctorate at like the University of Kentucky, and he got into politics basically from the beginning to release the slaves. He was big on emancipation for a long, long time. The slaughterhouse cases was his ultimate victory. If you look at his whole history, anyways, it's just if people would have actually followed what he said, it wouldn't have the country wouldn't have gotten so fucked up. So you got to think too. There's nothing evil. Could he have been more clear? Yeah, I guess he could have been more specific and more clear. But when you're in that position, you're trying your best. You don't know that the things you're saying are going to be that badly misconstrued. So I don't see anything. And then you go with Roger Taney and you look at his past. He had all sorts of health issues. Dude, he would write an entire book worth of information on almost every single major case he ever sat on. So I don't see these guys as anything bad or evil or I don't think they really had I don't think they were being manipulated or controlled or anything. I think it's just the slaughterhouse cases were just massively misunderstood. If there was anything evil or nefarious, it was after the fact in an effort to try to get everyone to misunderstand what Mr. Miller had said.
Yeah. I guess I still don't think that there should have been a U.S. federal citizenship category. Like, why weren't they just totally freed?
Well, they were, and then it was a problem.
Right. So that's what I meant by compromise. Is not him. Like,
well, you can tell.
Like,
you can tell.
Compromise, but yeah.
Well, no. Whatever issues occurred due to the fact that the released Negro slaves couldn't get citizenship, it was a huge problem throughout the entire society. I don't know really what that problem even was. I've never really figured that out. Like I said in the show I was in the other day, they didn't have things like driver's licenses and all this kind of stuff. So why? What was so bad, or what affected their life so much to need citizenship? I don't know the answer to that question. Were they trying to get loans from banks and the banks wouldn't give them loans unless they had a citizenship? Were they not able to buy homes unless they had? I have no idea. There was something about it that made it to where the released Negro slaves couldn't function in a way that they wanted for some reason. I don't know what that reason is. I'm sure at some point I'll figure it out, but right now I don't know. Because if you're free, you don't have citizenship, but the not having citizenship part was the part that was such a problem for whatever reason. I don't know why. I really don't.
Yeah, but I guess that's where the confusing part comes in, because citizen prior to that case literally just meant a state citizen. And like you said, United States citizen was just a colloquialism prior to that.
Yeah, if we go to just to throw it into Grok, just to see, I've been doing this recently, just toss some shit into Grok and just see if it gives me anything worthwhile. If I go to Grok and I type in, let's do a screen share. If I go to Grok and I type in, after the 13th Amendment, released Negro slaves did not have any citizenship until the slaughterhouse cases of 1873. What was the issue that the released Negro slaves were running up against that they needed citizenship so badly? They were allowed to be here as free inhabitants, but what benefits were they looking for that only citizenship could offer? I guess that's a good question. Okay, they were denied many rights and protections that citizenship offered. The core issue was their ambiguous legal status, which left them vulnerable to discrimination laws, economic exploitation, and social exclusion. Okay. I mean, that's common sense. I'm surprised I didn't think about that, but that makes perfect sense. I could accept that. Protection from discriminatory state laws, black codes. In the immediate post-Civil War period, Southern states enacted black codes, restrictive laws designated to control and exploit freed black people. These laws limited their ability to own properly, work freely, or move without restriction. For example, vagrancy laws could lead to arrest and forced labor if black individuals could not prove employment. In the Constitution, slavery is legal if a person is convicted of a crime. Yeah. And that's where this came into play. Wow. Because the 13th Amendment wouldn't apply if someone was arrested and charged with a criminal offense.
Right.
Without citizenship, freed black people had no clear legal standing to challenge these laws in federal court or claim. Okay. So for whatever reason, I've never really gone down this rabbit hole at all. This makes perfect sense. I did not realize that this was the problem, and it makes perfect sense. This is exactly what the problem was. Access to legal rights and due process. They lacked basic legal protection, such as the right to a fair trial, the ability to sue, the right to testify in court against white individuals. This made them vulnerable to arbitrary arrests, violence, and exploitation without recourse. Citizenship would secure due process rights and equal protection under the law, which was later affirmed by the 14th Amendment. Okay. Political participation, economic opportunities, and property rights, which comes from the Civil Rights Act. Federal protection against violence and peonage, social recognition, and equality.
So equal rights to contracts, property, and legal protections seems like the core.
Which we get into, which we see at 42 USC 1981. and 82. 42 USC 1982. Property rights of citizens. All citizens of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory as is enjoyed by white citizens.
See, so this is where the whole idea of intention comes to mind for me, because it's like the intention of this law or amendment, or I guess in this case, the laws that came out of the slaughterhouse cases, the intention is to uplift a group of people or people.
That's correct.
Whereas what has come of it is that it's actually brought down all of the groups of people that were state citizens prior to this.
So it was supposed to raise up one class and leave the other class the same. Mm-hmm. And instead, it became a black hole, which engulfed the other class, which is the white citizens.
Exactly.
You see it again here. All persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence. So you see, it's all the same stuff that Grok is telling us.
Right. So since you've covered all of this, plus the information that we just got off of Grok, how would you now tell the story of what happened and what led to basically all white citizens now being legally classified as Negroes? And I don't mean that in any racist.
We just say it. It's just because we say it. That's all. It's the only reason why it happens. I think white people who call themselves U.S. citizens should be going to prison.
I agree, but how did the deception unfold to such a point where most people are voluntarily calling themselves U.S. citizens without knowing what they're doing?
Even in the Army Training Manual, TM 2025, they thought that the 14th Amendment meant white people and all people and everything. So the slaughterhouse cases and this whole subject of U.S. citizen versus a state citizen, this was lost after the slaughterhouse cases very, very quickly. I don't even think that the information from Mr. Miller survived until the turn of the century.
Okay.
I mean, I personally, I don't think it lasted. I think even 10 years after the slaughterhouse cases, it was gone. Which would be about 1883.
Right, because people were just calling themselves citizens, thinking it meant state citizens.
They were all operating the same way as they did before the slaughterhouse cases, and then, yeah. It's just like money. They replaced all the dollars with Federal Reserve notes, and nobody knew the difference. And here we are 100 years later, and nobody's ever questioned it. And it's the same thing.
That one, I don't know that nobody's ever questioned. It seems like there is a small faction that has always been, go back to the gold standard, the sound money movement. There's always been a small group of people that have been around saying that stuff.
Yeah, well, none of them knew anything about negotiable instruments.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you know nothing about that thing of which you are up against, you're violating rule number 1 of Sun Tzu's Art of War, which is know thy enemy. Rule number 1, know thy enemy. If your enemy is negotiable instruments, boy, you better know more about that shit than anybody else on the fucking planet. Ideally, you would know more about negotiable instruments than even the entire banking industry, which is my situation that I'm in right now. That's the ideal situation. And that's why I never get sued, ever.
And they're just ignoring you and deflecting and...
No, they run from me. They try to get away from me. I'm beating in their doors all the time, and they're trying to run away.
Yeah. What are they calling you in court, though? They're just defaming
It's either sovereign citizen or it's vapor money theory, which is just absolutely hilarious.
Oh, and then isn't there the one case, I think it's your SBA case, where they're saying that they're a sovereign citizen?
They are literally, the government is saying that that the SBA is a sovereign citizen. Yes. It's the funniest fucking thing in the world. They're calling me a sovereign citizen while at the same time they're saying that they are a sovereign citizen.
Using a sovereign citizen defense for
themselves. They're literally using a sovereign citizen defense. Oh. You can't make this shit up. Truth is stranger than fiction.
Oh, man. Yeah, for the full story of basically the U.S. citizen versus state citizen 14th Amendment, I would just highly recommend Brandon's treatise on the word person on his Williams and Williams. That like he said, it's like a small book, but it is well worth the read. That's super solid, man. Great job on that.
To me, it's the best thing I've ever done, written, shot, made, you name it.
It's solid.
It's the best thing I've ever done, for sure.
Yeah. One question I had. So in earlier videos, you were it sounded like you preferred federal court. Now you're pretty clear that you prefer state court. What happened there?
The UCC is not federal law. The state adopted version of the UCC is law at the state level. So if you're trying to bring a UCC claim specifically, when I sued the SBA, I sued them in state court. They removed it to federal court. That pissed me off because I was like, all right, I finally got it. I finally got it figured out, guys. Okay, good. So the UCC, I'm not getting any traction in federal court because it's not a federal law. It's a state law. Fine. I'll sue them in state court. And then what do? Bink. They stuck it right back in federal. And I was like, fuck. And that's what I've been dealing with this whole time, is trying to understand that. And because when that happened, I was completely flabbergasted. I was like, how does this happen? How did they do this? How does this work? I was not expecting anything like that could happen or was possible or anything. So I went through this whole 30 days of feeling I had just gotten hit by a truck, and then tried to kind of get back on my feet. But I kind of was kind of late and kind of was under a time crunch to respond to some things and didn't know what to do. And then I got dismissed, and then we went to appeals. So that whole case, I just felt like I had gotten hit so fucking hard that I was just seeing duckies. But then now that I'm in the appeal, I feel like I'm in a much stronger position right now, where things are at literally right now. But we'll see. But the truth is, I think for a UCC claim or a negotiable instrument claim, I think that state court might be your better bet. But there's a lot of things that are better in federal court too. They both have their whatever. I mean, I don't really know that one is better than the other. They both have their own. In California, it's more expensive to do a state case because you have to pay every single time you file into the case. You have to use a third-party e-filing software unless you want to send it in by mail. Whereas if you do federal, everything's through Pacer. So it's a very, very organized, simple system that anyone can access. And then Pacer is connected to Recap. So if you have your Recap browser extension on Chrome, every time you download anything off of a docket, it goes into Recap for everyone on the planet, and you can share it with your friends. And it's just, Pacer and Recap is a really, 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 really great. That's the biggest advantage, in my opinion, to federal court. State courts, California state court, it's harder to get into the docket. It's more convoluted. It's more annoying. It costs money every time you file something in, like $14 every time you file something in. So, but the UCC is not law at the federal level. It's law at the state level. So it just depends. It just depends. Like a federal, a registered trademark violation, you don't file that in state court. That's federal only. A constitutional issue would probably be better in federal court. If you're suing someone in a different state, you're probably going to wind up doing that most likely in federal court, depending on the situation. So there is no what's better. It's just what's better for you given the situation. And then also, what do you know better? Most bar cards know state laws way better than they know federal laws. So if you're going up against some fucking bar card and you already know who the bar card is, it might be better to file it in federal court, because now you're going to throw him overboard because he doesn't know the federal laws that well. You can look up his name and you can see that all of his shit's in state court. He knows the state shit. He doesn't know the federal shit. So you file in the court of which the opponent doesn't know as well on purpose. You see? And that comes back to know the enemy.
Strategic, yeah.
It's all strategic, right? The reason why the DOJ is trying so hard to keep the SBA case in federal court is because that's their venue. That's their home. They're on home base. They don't want, that's another reason why, you go on Reddit and you look up shit about me and they're all laughing at me. None of these people have ever filed a lawsuit in their life. They're all laughing at me for filing it in state court against a federal agency. That's exactly what you should be doing. If it's a state agency, you should file against them in federal court.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think for me, one of the first lawsuits I'm going to file is against our utility company because I fucking hate them. Am I getting my wires crossed just from all of this oversaturated content over the last 30 days? But did you say they cannot cut your power off while you're in litigation with them, or was that a different?
There's different rules in every area. You would have to look at the local whatever. You would have to look at local
ordinances and stuff, right?
I've heard so many stories of people just making a phone call and saying they're gonna. I know stories of. I've seen one meme or like video online where if you call them and tell them that you're sending in a paper check, by law in certain areas they have to turn it back on for like 10 days, and then if they don't get the check, there's all sorts of whatever. I paid my shit. I'm suing the utility company. I sued them once in federal court, lost. And the reason why I lost is because I couldn't establish diversity jurisdiction. And the thing is, I really couldn't. If you look at that case, I never filed an appeal because I looked at it and I was like, yeah, fuck, I really shouldn't have done this. I should have filed this in state court. But I learned. It was all part of the learning process, right? I'm starting to learn now the various jurisdictions and how do they work and how do I get jurisdiction and how do I lose jurisdiction. It's different than everything you're going to find on the internet because I'm the only guy who's entirely plaintiff centric. I've never been sued and I probably never will be at the way things are going, right? Ever. I could literally throw a Molotov cocktail inside of the office window of my utility company. They probably still wouldn't sue me. So it's one of those things where being plaintiff centric, it's so interesting because everything you see in this whole arena of sovereignty, it's all about how to prevent the other party from getting jurisdiction. Whereas my whole experience over the past year and a half is as the plaintiff, how do I get it? So it's a completely different mindset. All of my material and my platform, a lot of it has to do with me trying to figure out how to get it.
Gotcha. Ah, man. Let's see what else I got here. Oh, are you still, because I listened to your conversation with Dave Champion, and I can't tell, do you still support the W8BEN with a new I-9?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. But it also sounds like the W4T has been more successful. So the
W4T is the one that I threw out entirely. That's the one people shouldn't use. It's not even a real form.
Okay.
It's a fake form. It's not really a fake form. It's just a simple contract made to look like it's an IRS form, which I don't think is fraudulent. No one's ever been like busted for it being like fraudulent. It's just someone tried to make a simple "I'm done, I'm leaving" piece of paper and make it look like it was something that was a standardized form, which isn't. It's not fraudulent because it's not something that it's not like you're using an instrument to try to like gain something unlawfully or do something unlawful or do something harmful. A fraud charge would have to have something like You're gaining money from the transaction unlawfully. You're conning someone in a way that creates some sort of unlawful activity. It's really just I'm done, I'm out, made to look like it's a form. So it's not fraudulent. It would never, if anyone said it's fraudulent, they don't understand the definition of the word fraud, and you can just laugh in their face because they have no idea what they're talking about. It's not fraudulent, but it isn't a real IRS form.
I gotcha. I also saw someone in one of your comments on one of your videos say you can just request a new W-4 and then file that exempt.
That's correct. That is 100% correct. You can do that, which is a better option than a W-4T. W-4T in the 2.0 course is gone. I said, don't do it, don't touch it, don't use it. It's not illegal. It's not going to get you in trouble per se. But I just don't see the point in using it. It's just not. If you wrote a little letter or an email and said, I'm done, take me off the rolls, it's the same thing as a W-4T. It's just clearer and more clear, really.
I gotcha. What do you think would cause less friction with a typical payroll?
W-4 exempt, 100,000%.
Gotcha.
W-8-BEN, I mean, you might as well set the building on fire. You might as well take a trash can, fill it with fucking paper.
Yeah, that's
light up a cigarette, toss it in there, and then leave for the weekend. That's a W-8-BEN.
That's what I was thinking. So I think I might go with just requesting a new W-4 and filing it exempt.
Sometimes the W-8-BEN it can be positive. Like for people who have like good connections with like their employer and it's like a smaller office, there can be like a sort of a foreplay build-up conversation where it's like, hey man, I'm learning about some stuff. I wanted to talk to you about it, about this W-8-BEN. I want to let you know it's really cool. It's actually a real form. It's a real thing. And also you won't have to match any of my payroll taxes anymore. And it's like a real thing. And like, you can pay less and I'll pay less and you don't have to file shit on my behalf anymore. And it just makes everything way easier. And people have had these kinds of conversations with their employer, and it's actually created a much stronger bond between the person and their employer. It's opened up doors for promotions that they wouldn't have had prior to those conversations. And then also there's also corporate atmospheres where it's ultra corporate, and they have like a login into some kind of system, and there's W-8-BEN on the box, and they click it and they fill it out, and it just e-files, and there's not even a human being that looks at it. That's also really, really easy. So those are the two categories that I've noticed from the hundreds or thousands of reports that I've gotten. Those are the easy categories where someone could do a W-8-BEN. But outside of those two categories, typically when you roll the W-8-BEN dice, it's like setting a trash can on fire and leaving for the weekend. Yes, typically.
Yeah. Nah, I don't plan on. Maybe 2 more years, and then I've working on starting my own thing, as you recommended for everyone in one of your videos. Yeah. But on my way out, I might try some things just to learn, if nothing else.
Seriously.
Shit. So we've covered basically everything I wanted to cover specifically, but on a more, I guess, just philosophical, these people that, like, I tried to talk to my friend yesterday about it, and he was like, to his credit, he was honest. He was like, I just don't know if I've got the balls for it, man. What do you say to these people that like understand the content but just are unwilling to pull the? For me, my answer was like, I just don't. For me, it's like, how else are we supposed to live our life? Like, I'm going to stand up for myself. It's more of just like I guess spiritual, just for a lack of a better term. But for me, it's just a real thing. Like, be real. I'm going to be real with myself. And like, that's where this content just really, like, I'm embodying it and I'm loving this shit, man.
Well, it comes down to depth of knowledge and certainty. For example, I am 100% absolutely positively certain that if I tried to get a driver's license, I'd be going straight to prison. In my mind, getting a driver's license and being inside of an iron cell,
right?
If getting a driver's license and being inside of an iron cell is one in the same, in my mind, they are fused together. I would be losing all of my personal integrity. I would become
Right.
I would
That's
become a
why.
criminal. I would be a felon, an unprosecuted felon, a type of felony that probably never would get prosecuted. But the thing is that you can be blackmailed.
Right.
When you commit felonies, even though you may not be prosecuted for those felonies, you can be blackmailed for them. Jeffrey Epstein ran the largest blackmail fucking facility to ever known on the entire planet. All that shit was all felonies that never got prosecuted. Just because you don't get prosecuted for a felony doesn't mean someone can't hold it over your head and control you.
Right. I hear you say that, and in my mind, that's because of the person you are internally, like your character. But de facto, you're not going to get arrested.
You never know what could change in the society either. You never know what could happen. Somebody could get into power, and something could happen. I don't know. You never know what's going to happen. A felony is a felony.
No, I mean that's the purist in you, and I heard Joey Kimbrough call you that, and I also heard him say that he doesn't fully agree with you about the 14th Amendment and the slaughterhouse cases, which kind of
he had never heard any of this stuff, and he had never read the slaughterhouse cases. So when I was talking about that and I gave my presentation, that was the first time he had ever seen that information. So
I was going to say, I don't know how.
So where is Joey at right now as we sit here? We've never had that conversation because typically when we start talking about these things, we go at each other's throat a little bit on this subject. So we and it's just not terribly important anyways, because it's not like we're the party section of a lot of our lawsuits that we're writing and stuff like that is getting so small. We're trying to shrink everything down into these like 2-page complaints now. We're trying to go on this whole different direction of we're trying to take everything to ultimate simplicity and prevent the bar cards from having a whole lot of loose ends that they can grab onto and run off like fucking psychopathic pieces of shit. So we're going in this kind of whole other direction where these deep philosophical conversations don't necessarily matter for a lot of the new complaints that we're doing. But for me, it's a subject that I find infinitely fascinating, and it's a subject that Joey finds moderately fascinating.
Got it.
So the thing is that nobody finds these deep, crazy philosophical ideas and conversations more interesting than I do. And that's pretty much the crux of it all, honestly, frankly. If I could, I tell Joey all the time, if I was in a court case and I had a choice between going on a 6-month philosophical dissertation between myself and the panel of judges in the appeals case and the defendant or the appellee, or winning the case, I'd probably just choose the 6-month of philosophical conversation, frankly. So I don't think there's very many people on this planet that would choose that over winning the case. Joey would choose winning the case over everything, do or die, paint my face. I am going to win this case, and I'll do anything to win it, barring fraud. And obviously, Joey's a straight shooter, beyond straight shooter. But we've had these conversations. We talked about this at our event. We just released day 2 of the Austin event. It's just a couple days ago or yesterday where I talk about this on the event. If I had a choice between winning the case or learning a lot, like what Susan Nelson had written, that long 20-page dissertation, I'd probably choose that over winning the case. Now, if I needed money, it'd probably be different. If I didn't have a lot of cash and I needed cash, or if my mom was sick and she needed a fucking lung transplant and I couldn't figure out how to do a negotiable instrument transaction and I desperately needed negotiable instruments on hand or something, I don't know, cash or who knows, or it was like a fucking black market deal and I had to pay cash in a black market to get a heart for my mother, it might be a different story. Now, all of a sudden, I do want to win the case more than I want to have a 6-month philosophical dissertation. But I don't need your fucking bullshit Federal Reserve notes. I don't need them. I don't care. So it makes me a very strange individual to fight, because I'm an individual who's fighting you, who is extremely vicious, extremely aggressive, more so than any other bar card they've ever seen. And he doesn't even care if he wins or loses.
What that tells me though is you find very deep value in those deep philosophical discussions. You're getting some sort of value out of that that is more valuable to you than winning.
Well, when you start reading a lot of cases from the 1800s, you start to crave that kind of intercourse over the intercourse of winning something and being given a bunch of fucking notes that you don't need. Like read a lot of Roger Taney shit, and you're going to be like, oh my God, people don't even talk like this anymore.
Yeah. Well,
Roger Taney is like a goddamn fucking poet. He's like a poet, a philosopher, and a book writer. And he just goes on and on and on about America and history and these various zones and what was going on. And he was a he was a historian, and he was a philosopher, and he was a fucking genius. I mean, he's beyond anything we have in this civilization.
so on a philosophical level, what would you say you feel our purpose is? Because I feel like your purpose is to bring this awareness to more people. And I guess it sounds corny, but I guess just empower people with the knowledge that allows them to leverage this information to benefit them rather than, like I said earlier, fuck them in the ass.
To me, it's very simple. A white man who was born in one of the 50 states, if he's got a driver's license, if he calls himself a U.S. citizen, he should be in prison. That's not really the way it is, because the thing is that in order to get prosecuted for an 18 USC 911 violation, you have to have willfully known that you weren't a U.S. citizen when you said you were a U.S. citizen. So technically speaking, even if they did start prosecuting people for these things, you still wouldn't be able to prosecute for most people because they don't understand the basics of the information. But if the word willful wasn't there, everyone with a driver's license, everyone who's registering to vote, everyone who's calling themselves a U.S. citizen, everyone who's filing a federal income tax return who's white should all be in prison. It's a very strong, intense communication. But to me, it's very, very clear because you have the legal aspects and then you have the aspects of integrity and you have the aspect of honor and you have the aspect of valor, right? And you have all these more esoteric philosophical ideas and terms and character and self-respect and all these different things, right? In my mind, because I do know how a certificate of title splits the title into a legal owner and an equitable owner, and I do know how it operates under the Commerce Clause, and I do know how the definition of the word driver is associated with federal law in terms of the original term driver originally meant chauffeur. So I know the entire history all the way back to, in California, the first vehicle code was from 1915. I know all the history. I know all the definitions. I know all the meanings. I know everything. And then I know how the U.S. citizen class was separated from the state citizen class. I know how the Commerce Clause operates within the confines of these various classes. So for me, at this point, knowing what I know, it would be an 18 USC 911 charge, which is up to 3 years in prison, to have a driver's license, to pay federal income tax, or file a federal income tax return, or I don't know how you'd even say it these days, or to say that I'm a U.S. citizen. It's very, very simple. It's very cut and dry. It's just get a driver's license, go to prison.
So on a philosophical or integrity level, wouldn't that apply to all people though?
Yeah,
Like
but you
not,
have to have the knowledge and understand it and fully embody it. And then at that point, you'll probably come to the same conclusion that I have.
right. But I'm saying even if you were an eighth or more of African descent or whatever, wouldn't you just if you're playing it the philosophical honor or integrity route, wouldn't you just say I'm a white man, make them prove it, and then that opens up a whole can of worms to where it's like they're not going to want to prove that because now they're
That's correct.
publicizing the fact that our laws are super fucking racist.
Well, that's the presumption side of the game.
Right.
When you understand the presumption side of the game, it sure is fun because now they're the one constantly trying to defend against your endless barrage of presumptions. You've been on the defensive position all this time to their endless barrage of presumptions. Once you understand that game, now the ideal situation is you're the one manufacturing all the presumptions and you're the one wearing them out by beating them half to death every second of the day. That's the ideal position to be in.
So I guess I want to end. This does not need to be near the end, but I want to hear some positivity. What do you love about the Republic of America? And I know it's your love for that version of America that drives you. So I just want to hear what you love about it.
Well, one of the things that's so unique to state citizenship that you don't see on the federal citizenship side of the spectrum is to naturalize as a state citizen, you have to eliminate all other citizenships, allegiance, pontiffs, princes, kings, everything. And then it goes even farther and it says you have to eliminate them by name. So if you had an allegiance to a prince, you have to name the prince and then eliminate allegiance to that prince. If you had allegiance to a king or monarch, you have to actually list the name of that king or monarch and then eliminate allegiance to that king or monarch. So it's America is everything. America is your everything, and there is no. You're seeing these riots in L.A., and you're seeing all this anti-Semitism all over the place, exploding into view in every single area. These things are all impassable on the state citizen side of the equation. Because if you're naturalized as a state citizen and you're found on the freeway waving a Mexican flag, you just sacrificed your citizenship.
Right.
If you're working for BlackRock and you're a state citizen, and someone finds out that you have some sort of allegiance connected to Israel, congratulations, you just lost your American citizenship. So America becomes everything. And if America ever slides away from being your everything, if you cheat on this woman leaves you instantly. So I find that to be more realistic. I find that to be more honest. And I find that to be the way that things really should be. And if you truly do devote yourself to her entirely, her gift to you is the entire Constitution, which includes the 9th and 10th Amendment.
Okay, that's where I thought you were going to start, was with the Constitution and the 9th and 10th Amendment.
So if you give her your soul, and that sounds a little bit weird, but it's actually very beautiful. If you ask for her hand in marriage, her exchange to you is the 9th and 10th Amendment. You get all the amendments because U.S. citizens really don't have any of them. But the two that you get that no one's ever even seen before, the real secret sauce is the 9th and 10th.
Right. And I mean, it's not just that. All of the statutes and regulations. I mean, if you actually read the Constitution, almost none of it is followed de facto because of the usurpation that you talk about with the 14th Amendment and the slaughterhouse cases.
That's correct. So what happened is the 14th Amendment became what is called the federal Constitution. So when you hear Constitution this and Constitution that and Constitution this, and you hear about people who take the U.S. Constitution, the original one from 1776 or whatever, and they put it into a case as evidence, and the court says, fuck that, that's not evidence, it's out of here, it has nothing to do with this court. The reason why is because the definition within the confines of our current court system, the definition of the term U.S. Constitution is the 14th Amendment. So if you say I have a constitutional right, and then you submit the 14th Amendment in as evidence, that would be correct, but that would now only apply to released Negro slaves. So in that same sentence of saying I have constitutional rights and submitting the 14th Amendment into the docket, at the same time you're saying a Negro, and a Negro doesn't have constitutional rights, so you've basically just fucked yourself by trying to unfuck yourself.
Yep. Man, it's a lot of word magic, deceptive word magic going on with the 14th Amendment. I mean, like you just said, the word constitution, the word citizen takes on a totally different meaning here. Um, person, which I guess that, I don't know if that matured into what it is now until after that, but still you can see it, its roots are starting here. Um,
Yeah, the word person means Negro, sole proprietorship, or some other type of legal fiction.
yep.
And if you want to get even more basic, it's just a Negro or legal fiction.
Mm.
There is no definition of person after 1873 that would not be that definition. Before 1873, it's a completely different definition, the word person.
Yeah. Yeah. My, I would say a book, my, I would say my book that I live by is called The Four Agreements. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that book.
No.
Um, it's it's known as like a self-improvement or spiritual book, but to me it's just super practical, and they're agreements that you make with yourself. But even agreement on its most basic level, like that's what definitions are, and that's what contracts are. So agreements, like the fact that I live by the four agreements, like all of the stuff that you teach, it's all kind of, they really merge well together. They align. Let's use that word, because it really is just about, the third agreement is don't make any assumptions. Okay, you're the king of that, Brandon. Here, what's the definition? What's the definition? What's the definition? What's the definition in this context? What's the definition in this context? What do you mean by that? And that is called getting clear. And that's what you have to do when it comes to this stuff. If you make the assumption that person means the human being or man or woman, you're fucked from the start.
That's correct. And the way law has been structured, I don't know for how long, but for quite some time, is presumptions become fact within the confines of that particular justiciable controversy. And then if that presumption somehow makes it to the appellate court, then at that point it becomes what's called case law for that sector underneath that appellate court. If it makes it from that appellate court all the way to the Supreme Court, and then the presumptions that become fact at the Supreme Court level, but at that level they're going to be a lot more careful about that thing. They're going to be aware of 301, but they're not going to allow horse shit to go all the way through to the Supreme Court. Just like fucking Mr. Miller, he didn't allow horse shit to go all the way to the Supreme Court. The problem is he did a good job and everybody else fucked up in reading it. It's a totally different conversation. I have never in my life read a Supreme Court case where they allowed some horse shit to become a presumption that became fact under 301. That's lower court dog shit, fucktard, retard, kindergarten shit. When you start getting into the appellate court, that starts to go away. Boy, it sure is interesting how the bar cards act a lot different in the appeals court than they do in the district court. All of a sudden, they're dressed nicer, they don't smell like shit, and they're not sucking fucking cock before they come into the fucking courtroom. All of a sudden, they're a lot more kind and they play by the rules. I'm sure if I got myself all the way to a Supreme Court, they'd probably really snap straight.
Yeah. Oh man. I guess I've covered basically everything I wanted to, but the one thing I didn't let you run with is the
de jure versus
oh yeah, that
de jure versus de facto. We never actually answered that.
Facto. Yeah.
I wanted to show you the article on that. Did you ever see this?
I asked this question because of Joey Kimbrough calling you a purist, and that's, it reminded me of de jure, and you do speak as if, like, when you're like, I'm going to prison, bro, I'm going to prison. It's like, yeah, that's definitely a purist perspective, because the de facto is more than likely you're probably not going to prison. But
there's no way in hell I'll ever go to prison. But in my mind, it's just, I literally,
it's the
I've got the
aspects.
application for the driver's license here. I fill it out. I get right to the point where you sign. I'm not going to prison. And then literally the moment the pen touches the paper, the FBI is there to take me away in a fucking car. That's, in my mind, that's how it works.
Because of the concept of integrity is strong with you.
It's felony or not felony. To me, it's very, very clear. It's very simple.
Yeah.
You have an unprosecuted felony and you have a prosecuted felony, but they're both still felonies.
Yep.
End of story. I don't commit felonies. I'm probably the only motherfucker in the country that doesn't commit felonies, which I know sounds kind of weird, but I swear to God, the more I learn and the more I live and the more I do this, I really feel like I'm the only motherfucker in this whole country that isn't committing felonies.
Which anybody else was to say that, I would be like, "You're fucking crazy." But you,
which could explain it could explain why no one knocks at my door and no one mails me anything. No one talks shit. No one. I'm sure people probably think too, like, well, fuck, if we list anything in our newspaper about Brandon Joe Williams, he's going to come after us for defamation and for registered trademark violation. So it's just like, and what people don't realize is I just don't give a shit. To me, it's just free advertising. I mean, you would have to really damage me somehow for me to want to come after you, which I don't see how any of you dumb pieces of shit with your stupid fucking faggot fucking newspapers and your magazines and your online bullshit and your Channel 7 News. Channel 7 News, Channel 9 News can't hurt me. The kind of people who watch Channel 7 News, if by seeing an article about me keeps them away from me, you did me a favor. I don't want the kind of people who watch Channel 7 News fucking coming around my shit asking me questions and being fucking retarded. You've got 2 whole years of deprogramming to go through before you can even start to understand my shit. You need like a fucking, deprogramming fucking crew to come in.
2 years, that would be a crash course for most of them.
So what I mean, I don't need your Channel 7 News people. I don't need your Channel 9 News people. Now, let's say I had some big contract with some big corporate company and Channel 7 News ran something about me and it caused this big corporate company to sever some huge contract that I had. Yeah. Oh yeah. We're going straight to civil court. But I don't have anything like that. I don't have anything that they can even hurt me with. There's nothing that a Channel 7 News or a Channel 9 News or any other organization could do that can hurt a guy that basically legally is a ghost. A lot of times they can use things like bank accounts. They can leverage that to try to control people. You can't do that with me because I've got trust for everything. Oh, we'll take away your driver's license. Well, you can't take that away. I don't have one. And if I had one, I'd be going straight to prison. Oh, we'll take away your passport. Okay, fine. I mean, I suppose the only real area in my life that I suppose if they really wanted to go far enough, they could kind of hurt me is to take away my passport. But frankly, I'm at the point in my life now where I don't even really care about that either. If they took away my passport, I would try to book flights. And if they didn't let me go in because I didn't have a passport, I would just start suing everybody. And I would just become their worst fucking nightmare. And I guarantee you, I will be let on the planes without a fucking passport or any type of identification. I guarantee you, and I'll get there, and it won't take me years and years and years to get there. It'll be pretty rapid. Guaranteed. There's not a single doubt in my mind that I can litigate my way onto planes internationally and domestically without any sort of identification at all whatsoever. So at that point, what are you going to do to me? I have to prove damages to have a cause of action. Am I supposed to fake damages? Oh, boo-hoo, look at how much damage you did to me. Oh, boo-hoo, look what you did to me. I would have to manufacture damages. The problem when you start manufacturing damages, you're basically manufacturing a victim mindset. Manufacturing a victim mindset and placing it forth and displaying a victim mindset in an intense way all the time puts you into this whole horrible frame of mind, does more damage to you than it's worth trying to get. And then even if you do succeed in degrading yourself into a victim mindset and using that in an attempt to win, you're going to win unconditional promises to pay that you could have manufactured yourself in 5 seconds at home with your dick, dipping your cock in an inkwell and using it to write on a piece of paper. So at the end of the day, the whole thing just becomes completely fucking ridiculous. I don't need anything from you. I don't even care if I win cases. You can't do anything to me. You can kill me, I suppose, but that's nothing you can do anything about. So why worry about that? If they want to kill you or grab you, they're going to do it. You could have these guys walk around with their 3 or 4 big bodyguards. Bro, if someone wants you, 3 or 4 bodyguards can be taken down in a matter of like 0.2 seconds. 8 guys with shotguns, they pull up, they start shooting before the fucking guys even know what's going on. You drop 4, 7, 8 huge monster bodyguards in 3 seconds. You grab the guy, you stick him in a fucking truck. It's the easiest thing in the world. Having 4 or 10 or bodyguards, it doesn't make a fucking bit of difference.
I actually did just think of a question, but I want you to finish up with the de jure before I ask it.
So the if you go on the statelessness, and it's so funny, I started talking about this article like really heavily, like in 2022 and 2023. And then all of a sudden they archived it and they put it down as 2017 to 2021 archived content. And that's totally untrue. This was archived in like 2022. I want to say late 22 or like early middle 23. Unless they archive it based off of when it was created. If they archive it based off of when it was created, this actually might be true now that I really think about it. But that's not the date it was archived. It was archived.
Those look like inauguration dates for, I guess that would have been Trump's first presidency.
Well, I don't know. But either way, that's not, this was going strong until 22, 23. And then I started talking about this like crazy. And they archived it, but thank God we can still access it. It just says archived at the top, but it's still accessible. So a stateless person is somebody who, under national laws, does not enjoy citizenship, the legal bond between a government and an individual in any country. While some people are de jure or legally stateless persons, meaning they are not recognized as citizens under the laws of any state, many people are de facto or effectively stateless persons, meaning they are not recognized as citizens by any state, even if they have a claim to citizenship under the laws of one or more states. It's super weird and confusing. I can't believe they even use these terms. That's the most shocking thing, because de jure means like of true law or of reality in relation to law. De facto legally means that, yes, it's here, and yes, it's like a reality in the world, and you can see it and touch it and smell it, but it really shouldn't be here, and it has no legal basis to exist. So it's just really fascinating to me that they even use these terms, because these terms, when you use these kind of terms, it can ask, people start asking questions based off these terms, and boy, they uncover a lot fast. So typically you don't see these kind of words being used. But it's just hilarious to me because it doesn't even make sense. some people are de jure or legally stateless persons, meaning they are not recognized as citizens under the laws of any state. So this sentence is so confusing because they're basically saying that some people are like of actual law, which would be state citizens, by the way. So like they're not recognized as citizens under the laws of any state. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah.
Many people are de facto or effectively stateless persons. That doesn't make any sense either. So, so what causes statelessness? Lack of birth registration and birth certificates. Birth to stateless parents. Just a really goofy, interesting, fascinating article. Without citizenship, stateless persons, people, look at that, they switched it up, people now, have no legal protection and no right to vote. And they often lack access to education, employment, healthcare, registration of birth. They act like that's a fucking huge benefit. Marriage or death, and property rights. Stateless people may also encounter travel restrictions, social exclusion, and heightened vulnerability to sexual and physical violence. Sounds like a lot of the same complaints the black people were making when we were reading from Grok what was going on with the released Negro slave that didn't have any citizenship, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's see here. De jure basically means state citizens, which is for white people. And de facto basically means, you know, the whole U.S. citizen thing isn't really de facto if you think about it. Because if it was just the Negroes that were the U.S. citizens, and it was just the Negroes that had to have driver's licenses, and if it was just the Negroes that had to have concealed carry permits, that would actually be de jure.
Right.
That would actually be what the exact duplication of the actual law. If the white people didn't have to have any of that, and the white people could just fucking do whatever they want, and the white people had all 10 amendments, including the 9th and 10th, and the Negroes, which they're innocent until proven guilty, so they would either need to call themselves a Negro, or there would have to be some sort of evidentiary hearing or something to prove that they are Negro, are the ones who would have to have all this other bullshit, and they're the ones who the police could fuck with. The police can't fuck with the white people. They can only fuck with the Negroes.
But that's where the de facto comes into play, because they are fucking with us, and because we're
That's correct.
Ignorant of.
So when the police fuck with a white person, that would be de facto.
Right.
If the police only fucked with the Negroes, that would be de jure.
Right.
If the sheriffs are picking up white people because they have a grand jury indictment, that would be de jure.
If the police are picking up white people because they have an indictment?
Correct.
Well, I guess technically you mean the sheriff's office, though, right?
Isn't that what I said?
Well, the police, I guess.
Oh no, I don't know. Did I say police or I thought I said sheriff?
Yeah. So.
Did I say sheriff or police?
You said police, but
no.
So
Never mind. Sorry, that's wrong.
If the sheriff's office,
the sheriffs pick up white people because they have a grand jury indictment, that's de jure.
And that's all under the laws of the Republic in the Constitution.
That's all before even 1850. That goes all the way back to the very beginning. Yes.
Right.
So you start looking at a lot of these court cases and stuff from the early 1800s. They talk about how like the people make up the sovereignty. Even Taney talks about that in Dred Scott versus Sanford, right? So the reason why the grand jury system is the way it is because you have the sovereign individual, and then you have all these other sovereign individuals that are within that same sovereignty that are exerting power over that same sovereign individual within the confines of all these various people are all on the same sovereign playing field.
Right.
And that's all white people.
Yep.
So you have 25 white people, I believe, for the grand jury, and then the grand jury indicts the other white person from the same zone. 25 Arizonians indict another Arizonian, and they exert sovereign power on the other sovereign through the sovereign system.
Yep.
And that's de jure.
And I guess on a literal like definition level, de jure just means as it's written.
It means as law, as it's written, as truth. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas de facto is what's being enforced regardless of what's written.
So if you had a grand jury and there was an Arizonian and one of the people, which would be a persons on the grand jury, was a Negro, that grand jury indictment would be a de facto jury indictment. It wouldn't be a de jure jury indictment because a Negro can't be on a grand jury when indicting a white state citizen.
Right. So I think this is the perfect spot to come full circle because near the beginning, you were talking about the definition of individual basically means Negro. And you said, we're just going to have to trust you on that one for now. I've, like I said, consumed so much of your content. I get that. But for people who may not fully understand it, can you take us point by point as to how individual means Negro?
Do I want to go that far? Let's see. What is today? 5:30. How long have we been on this?
About 2.5.
No, I would rather just send people to this. I think that you should take time. I think if I did do that now, I would just try to shorten everything. I wouldn't be that interested in it. It's just a long.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. If you go to this is it. This is the answer I'll give to this. This is a great answer. So let me open up a Firefox because I'm going to go into a different browser on this one. We're going to go to, we're going to type in my channel on YouTube. This is my channel, Brandon Joe Williams, Law Made Fun and Simple. I'm halfway to our first silver creator, 100,000 subscribers. So if anybody would like to,
could not recommend that channel
share,
more.
If anybody would like to share, or if we can get up to 100,000, it'd be kind of fun. I'll get a plaque and all that kind of stupid shit. So we're going to click on this channel, which is not working for some reason. Conspiracy.
I think you can just click on the videos, or yeah.
So here's the channel. I guess maybe we're already there. So if you go to this, the Sovereignist Citizen of the Land live event in Austin, I just posted this, as you can see, 2 days ago. This is day 2 of 3. If we click on this, I don't know what's going on over here on my end, but if you click on this, it'll start off, Cameron Wilson's talking at first, but then you're going to fast forward maybe, I'm going to say an hour and 10 minutes or an hour and 20 minutes or maybe an hour and 30 minutes. I don't know why it's not coming up at all. So I don't know what.
It's all good. That's the video you'll look for, though. The Sovereignist Citizen of the Land, day 2 of 3. Okay. Here we go.
So I don't know if you can hear that when it was on, but
you got it muted.
If I go like this, can you hear it? Can you hear that?
No, I still can't.
Okay, good. Yeah, so it's just not plugged into the Zoom or whatever. So that's good. That's what I wanted. So if you just scroll forward to it's great content. I mean, Cam is fucking brilliant.
I was going to say, just watch it all.
Joey Kimbrough is so fucking amazing. But if you wanted to hear the only presentation that I've ever done on the treatise, because the treatise is very new, and it's a very intense, hardcore, like Dan Pena style fucking presentation of the treatise of the word person, you're going to go to right around here. I've been watching it and reviewing it. I typically review a lot of my content over and over and over and over again, like a freaking madman. right around here. I know it's just going to be, it's literally just seconds away. So it's 1 hour, 36 minutes, and 30. Let's
38-ish
let's
minutes.
just let's just watch this for just, I don't know how to.
You can hit the forward arrow on your keyboard, and that'll skip
Really?
like 5 seconds at a time.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. Look at that. Learn something new every day. There we go. So it's an hour 40, literally on the dot.
Yeah.
1 hour, 40 minutes. This right here is the very beginning of me going through almost the entire treatise. There's actually more to this that got cut off that wasn't recorded for some reason, probably ran out of battery or something. But it's a really good chunk, and I want to say it goes all the way to where Joey starts talking, which is probably right around here. So from 140 until
About 254, it looked like 255.
Until about 255. So what is that, like an hour?
An hour and 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, so it's about an hour and 15 minutes. It's a whole. It's probably 75% of the treatise here. And I go into a lot of filling in a lot of blanks, and there's a lot of additional information here and stuff like that. So this is where I would go to learn about all of that, frankly.
Yeah, for sure. Or just read the treatise if you're more of a reader. Like I said, it's just super solid work from start to finish. It took me about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to read, but it was awesome.
It's a lot of life-changing mind fuck content in an hour. It's an hour and a half that would have taken somebody 20 years ago 20 years to,
and it's easy to read too.
Yeah.
Like it's not a bunch of legalese. Like you've structured it really well. You go from point to point in a seamless manner. Really well written. Really good job on that.
Thank you.
Last thing before I let you go, because this just popped into my mind while we were talking about 30 minutes ago. OC10 agreements. Have you started this have you gotten 6 buddies together?
We've got teams. We've got teams, but I don't talk with them very much.
Okay.
We have teams. They're just kind of like, I don't know what they're doing. We've talked a couple little times. I don't really care that much. But it is cool. I do tell them, if there's anything crazy that happens, anything big, or if you need me for anything, please let me know. But in honest fact, we don't really talk much.
So, but I'm referring to the Fed window as in terms of like creating your own financial institution, and then we
have 2 or 3 teams that are doing this, but I don't know if they're driving it on a regular basis. I don't know like where they're at. I don't know what kind of success. I don't know what the situation is. Am I going to open a federal credit union at some point in the future? Yeah, most likely I am. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me like when you get all the way through the UCC3 and you learn all of the stuff that you're teaching about the UCC3 and negotiable instruments, isn't that like going to the source? Like, let's just organize. You take 7 of us according to the law, but you get 7 of us together, file the documents properly, and you literally have access to the Fed window. So draw up loans for all of your family members, just collect the interest and give them free shit.
Well, part of the process to start a federal credit union, according to the times I have talked to these people, is you have to have some sort of group or culture or subclass that you intend on servicing, like a church congregation or a business or a big group, a club, or there has to be some sort of like pool of people already established. I don't really know like what all the rules are. I don't know if you have to have this established or if it's just like considered very I don't know. But I know that's part of the process is filling out information and being asked questions as regards to the pool of individuals you are going to be servicing. So I know that the pool of individuals you are going to be servicing is either required or it's a big part or there's something to that, right? And obviously at this point, I have the biggest pool they've ever seen in their entire life, ever fucking come into there and ask them for anything. So the reality is I could probably figure it out. I mean, I've thought about calling down. I do have the Los Angeles Federal Reserve district. The main district bank in California is in San Francisco, but we have an auxiliary sub district Federal Reserve Bank here in Los Angeles. I believe it's in downtown LA. So I have a major connection or a major, not a connection, but a major location that I can go to fill out paperwork or to ask questions or to connect with a Federal Reserve banking professional. I don't know all of the terminology or all of the questions or all of the things that I would have to. I mean, the best thing is probably just to go down there one day and just show up in person. I don't know what else to really do or say in terms of anything. I remember one time I just typed into the internet randomly, how do I open up a federal credit union? And it gave me all the steps. If we went to, I like Grok because I don't know a lot about AI and I don't really care to know. And I type in these long, super detailed questions like the one we did last time. And I usually get pretty good stuff, frankly. Yeah. Chat GPT and all these other ones, they don't give me anything close to anything like this ever. In fact, I hate most of them with a passion. So what are the various steps to open up a federal credit union, and how do I get started?
I'll be interested to see if the OC10 is in here explicitly.
Well, no, because the OC10, you don't need an OC10 to have a federal credit union. You only need the OC10 if you want to give the federal credit union Federal Reserve discount window access. You don't need Federal Reserve discount window access. You can have your federal credit union and never have Federal Reserve discount window access.
You wouldn't really be able to. You wouldn't be able to do these negotiable instrument currency exchanges, though, which is basically
but you could do a million other things.
Yeah.
Establishing a proof of concept, developing the charter application, finalizing the application and charter approval. So, submitting a preliminary plan to the NCUA.
National Credit Union Association Administration.
Yeah. So, research whether your community or target group needs a credit union. See, that's why you've got like doctors credit union, teachers credit union. Like it's a credit union is based upon a group or community, right? Consider demographic and geographic factors such as whether the area is underserved by financial institutions or if existing institutions fail to meet specific needs, affordable loans, low fees. Is there a demand? What's the common bond or field of membership? For example, employees of a company, residents of a community, members of an association. See, like I said earlier, are there enough potential members to make the credit union viable? Okay. Engage with potential members through informal discussions or preliminary surveys to gauge interest. Historical data suggests FCUs typically need between 500 and 1,000 potential members to be viable. I mean, if I opened the doors to an FCU, I would have 100,000 people in the door within 24 hours. And that's just like the top tier hot. They know what I do. Like that's not even like, then you have the whole second wave, which is going to be all those people going on social media and talking about all the shit they're doing with their FCU. And then you have this whole second wave explosion, which is going to be hundreds of thousands or millions of people. I'm talking about just the first initial wave of just, I post one post, hey, FCU's open, go here, 100,000 people instantly, for sure, right? Form an organizing group, subscribers. Assemble a group of committed individuals, subscribers responsible for researching, planning, and applying for the charter. These individuals should ideally have financial, legal, or community leadership experience. Designate a primary contract or organizer to liaise with the NCUA. Ensure subscribers are of good character as they will undergo background checks later. Define the purpose and core values. Promoting thrift, providing affordable credit, or serving underserved populations. Member empowerment. See, it's all based upon a community or a group. You see, that's the thing. That's the thing that I think a lot of people run into as a problem with this. If they don't have a big group or some sort of pool, it's just not going to work. Which is probably why I'm going to have to be the one to do this. NCUA.
So the reason I brought this up and kind of where my mind was with it was, most of these financial institutions who are committing what some may call securities fraud, I'm not sure what your preferred label is for what they're doing when they take your blank endorsed negotiable instrument, take it to the Fed window, and then they're receiving the full maturity value, and then you're going to still pay on that for however many years the term of the quote unquote loan is when they've already done that currency exchange. So if we were to have our own OC10 access, federal credit union or not, we could actually give genuine loans, whatever you want to call it. But basically, the way that would work is you make, put 30% interest on there, take that negotiable instrument to the Fed window, collect the interest on the payment. That way, our federal, credit union with this OC10 Fed window access still is making money, but we're also, giving our friends and family access to homes and cars and whatever. You see where I'm going with that thought?
Yeah. So it gives you the whole thing. Phase one, proof of concept. They say about 60 days to get that done. Phase two, charter application. Phase three, final NCUA approval. 180 days from receipt of a complete application in phase two to charter issuance.
And once we had an OC10 agreement, would there be anything that they could do to stop us from doing that?
Well, you'd have to do all this first. And then once all this is done, then you could do the OC10.
Gotcha. And then once all that's in place, there's nothing they can do to stop you from, creating a negotiable instrument that some might call a loan document, putting a 30% interest charge on it, having my best friend blank endorse it over to me. And then he's got a house or a car or whatever the loan is for, and I've got the maturity value, at least the interest, because I'm going to balance his account out once I go to the Fed window. I'll get those negotiable instruments, balance his account out, and I'll make the interest, and I'll profit that amount of currency. Is there anything they could do to stop that once you have, like what you're talking about with this 3-phase of opening the federal credit union plus the OC10 agreement? Once you've got all that in place, is there anything they could do to stop that?
No.
That is fucking awesome. We got to do this.
They give you a phone number and an email address right here. newfcu@ncua.gov.
This is amazing.
Once you submit proof of concept, an NCUA coordinator will be assigned to work with you throughout the chartering process. I mean, I want to do this. I just don't know if I want to do it now. But maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe I should at least get started on it. 180 days plus 60 plus whatever waiting period between the two. There's a waiting period. I mean, it could take me 6 months or a year to get this done. I might as well start now, I guess. Better to start it now and then be halfway through it by the end of the year than have to fucking start it at the end of the year and then takes till the end of fucking 26 to get this going. Because the OC10 is pretty fast. You put the OC10 in within 2 or 3 months, you've got it done. Here we go. What is this? Proof of concept form. Oh wow, oh wow, okay. Submit form. Huh. Oh yes, you have to have 7 people to do it.
Yeah. And it looks like you have to have 7 people to do this as well.
You're required to have at least 7 subscribers of good character and fitness who will be involved in the chartering process. Consider seeking subscribers with diverse backgrounds that include accounting, financing, marketing, legal, and operations experience. Collectively, this group should have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to operate a credit union successfully. Interesting. Interesting.
This was as soon as I heard you talking about the OC10, this was like automatically just came to mind. Because it's like, all right, they're taking our negotiable instruments that we're blank endorsing and they're getting like 4 times that value. And plus collateral, you know what I mean? Like we could do that ourselves and actually treat people well and like educate them on how to properly endorse it and like still be a profitable company.
Where did I say that? Donated. Funding sources. What are your sources of capital donation? How much in capital donations does a federal credit union typically need to open and survive? Yeah, no shit, you fucking idiot. Oh, what the fuck?
That's affordable, more affordable than I thought.
Yeah, I thought it'd be more than that too. I mean, we're not going to have any of these fees. Literally nothing. We won't have any chartering fees. We won't have any office space, no technology, no staffing, no marketing, and no legal or consulting fees. Nothing. And 100,000 people begging to get into the door at the same time.
Yeah. Yes. Let me get a car and a house and whatever else you're willing to negotiably create. You can make those high interest too. Need you to get yours.
Net worth cushion. Yeah. Maybe I'll figure out I got to have 7 people, so probably figure that out.
I'll send you my resume.
Yeah, maybe I will look into this.
Yeah, I mean, literally the very first time I heard you talking about OC10, like this whole vision came to mind. It's like, well, they're doing it and fucking us. We could do it and actually help them gain an amazing reputation. And that demand is going to go crazy from the first few people that start talking about it.
Yep.
Well, man, I'm not going to take any more of your time, but this was awesome. And I really appreciate you coming on to talk to me.
Yeah, broski, thank you very much. And Well, remind me of your demographic. What's your show? Where's your show at?
So I'm actually in Richmond, Virginia, Federal Reserve Bank, right up the street. Um, my demographic is mostly friends and family. Honestly, I have picked up some people on the internet. I don't. This is a hobby to me. I do it for fun. I literally the only internet famous people I have on, like yourself, are ones that like. I really love their content.
Okay.
So if you've been on, that means I really did a deep dive into your stuff. I really found it fascinating.
Yeah, I noticed you have a lot of really precise questions, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'll probably ask you to come on again in a few months once some of these cases develop a little bit more because I want to dig. I mean, I've read the your cases page on your Williams and Williams, and I plan on digging into them a little bit more. Over the last several days in preparation for this podcast, I've kind of stuffed myself with your content, but so I might need to chill out on a little bit before I dive back in. But
yeah, I get it. It could be a lot. Yeah.
It's been awesome though, man. It's like a new spark, like another new passion of mine. And it's truth, man. I'm a philosopher too. That's what my degree's in. I would say, as far as like the show, it's spiritual matters, human potential, conspiracy a little bit, but for me, it's like conspiracy facts, not conspiracy theories. I'm not talking about reptilians and shit too much, but the facts are the facts. And
I'm on a lot of those shows too, so whatever. I don't know.
I know.
I just say whatever is fine. I don't, as long as you aren't hurting people, I don't give a fuck. Talk about them.
Yeah, I'm the same way. For me, it's more about how do you treat each other. It's all about respect and love for me, and optimizing your life. I mean, you only get one, man. We're only here right now. The future and the past are fucking ideas in our head,
Yep.
So that's where I'm at with that. So I would say, if I had to put a word on it, spiritual, but the reason I call it the balancing act is because the word spiritual just has this fucking woo connotation to it that it's just not what I am. I'm practical. But if you're truly practical, that leads you to a genuine spiritual outlook on life. And so that's where the balance comes in, right? So
correct.
So that's where I'm at with that. But yeah, I meant to tell you, and I haven't told you in this entire time we've been talking, outside of the research that you do and the work that you do and the presentations that you put forth, your demeanor, your sense of humor, that's something that I just find really appealing about you, man. Thank you for being you.
Thank you.
Yeah, man.
Thank you for being here. Thanks for being a fan. Thanks for sharing the information. I mean, that's really what matters, is we got to get it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
We got to get everybody over the I can't believe any of this could be possible hump, which takes some time. The faster we get people at least started on that process, you know what I mean? We got to get everybody kind of rolling on that process. The process of
there's three responses that I've run into, Brandon. One is, oh, Trump is going to take care of that. Oh my God. Don't even get me started with that one. The other one is, I don't do conspiracy theories. This is the law. This is literally like, look it up. You know what I mean? And then the third one is the one that I told you earlier, where it's just like, he literally said, I think your boy's right. I just don't know if I've got the balls for this quite yet. He said, I got a lot going on. It feels like I'd be pissing in a headwind.
Well, that one there, that last one, that's a good one too. That's a good one, because that just means that the day that he gets that EDD bill or that IRS bill, or the day that he does get pulled over and he gets his window shattered by some psycho cop who's fucked up, who just is going through a divorce or whatever, he'll be the first one at your doorstep.
Right. No, facts. Awesome, man. Oh, and you didn't get the chance to read my little blurb I sent you over Instagram, but like, just to give you even more of an idea of how much of a passion this has become relatively quickly for me, I kind of want this to be the new direction of my channel. Like, I want to get Cameron on. I want to get Dave Champion on, Mansa, what's Jaleel Bay. I want, like, might be the new direction for me, because it, like I said, it just maps right on to what I've always been about anyway. So
they would love that. I'm sure a lot of those guys would love that. Dave Champion seems to be like semi-retired these days, but he likes to go on shows sometimes. Cam is the biggest up and comer. His traffic on his platform is at my level, if not exceeding my level already, and it's only like 6 month old. So he's exploding into the scene as the primary driving versus traveling guy on the whole internet. Jaleel, I think it's an absolute shame. He has a very small platform. I think he should be one of the biggest platforms on the entire internet, personally. I think the way he teaches and what he has to say and how he says it is literally some of the best content available on the entire internet. And you have guys like James C. Lovett. He's been doing this shit forever. He's been doing this shit since probably before 2010.
I had actually asked Jaleel to come on, but this scheduling didn't work out. But I was like, well, I'll get Brandon on, and then I'll send him the link to me and Brandon's podcast and let him know. Like,
Jaleel's a bit hard to schedule. He's a little bit hard to schedule. Yeah. I tried to schedule with him a couple times, it didn't work, and then I tried to get him as a speaker to my event in Austin, and that didn't work out. So he's a little bit hard to schedule.
Gotcha.
You might need to kind of stay on him a lot for some time to get him on your show, but yeah, Cam is probably going to be easy. Monza.
I really love Cam. I mean, I had my own. I had my feet run over by a forklift. And I was 50-50 to walk again. So hearing his story, it's like I'm thinking to myself, 98% of people cannot fucking relate to you, bro, and I can only partially relate to you. You know, I'm a partial amputee. I can partially relate, and none of these people can even relate to me. So they are far away from being able to relate to you, bro. And the other more just character-based aspect that really resonated with me is he is just unashamedly God first, and he, you know, that's where I'm at too. Is just like, I don't even care about the name God. You can call it consciousness, nature, Allah, Jah. I mean, you call it what you want. The truth is the truth, period. What exists is there's some sort, I mean, you can call it intelligent design. Once you put a word on it, you've already distorted it. Kind of like, I'm kind of Taoist in that way. The true Tao is the Tao that can't be named, you know?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So, but you know, call it, it's just the spirit behind what he's saying, you know, when he's talking about Most High, God first. And that's where all contracts come from, right? Is between the creator and the created, the creatures, right? So,
yep.
So yeah, man, just awesome stuff. And again, thank you so much for everything that you're doing and for being the person that you are.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. Enjoy your evening.
You too, my friend.
I got that. Yeah, heard them call me conscious. I ain't think about it honestly. My thoughts too deep to process, so I do this all unconsciously. Finally feeling God bless. Got 'em woke up dropping prophecy. Don't take it out of context. Just before, I swear they always sleep. Now they catch the message, yeah. Bet that every song is deep. It's levels in each concept, but I can't just never mono theme. I'm trying to lead this flock for the cause, not the following. People upon a partner, and I wonder why they drawn to me. Once upon a time, I thought to follow up a dream. Draw life about these lines, nothing twice about these schemes, and like thrice about these insights. What I write is like a blueprint for you to comprehend life. That's light, I reckon, make you shine. Never dim it down, even if you live surrounded where everybody vision clouded. Remember, staying down ain't quite as good as getting out. It's and remember, staying down ain't quite as if you believed, yeah. Many doubted it was hard for them to think. Somehow I'm finally getting out of that's it. Usually, yeah, they vision clouded, but as you can see by now, we finally getting out there, writing truth, spreading love. Tell me how you feel about it. Got this music from above, this how I know I'm getting out there, writing truth, spreading love. Tell me how you feel about it. Got this music from above, this how I